Chapter 464. Chen Xishuan shook her head gently and said, "There's no need for that, Brother Qianyu. I'm willing to do this. After I met Jidong, I realized that we were just siblings. I can't go against my heart. I fell in love with Jidong at first sight, and this will never change. I know this will hurt you, but I don't want to lie to you. The person I love is Jidong. Brother Qianyu, you're a good man, but I really can't be with you." Lin Qianyu's expression gradually changed. His elegant temperament suddenly became cold. His entire body was emitting a layer of strong green light, which was the effect of the elemental body. He had yet to release his yin-yang crown, but he was able to display the power of the elemental body under such circumstances. It was obvious how powerful he was. With one step, Lin Qianyu had already walked into the corridor in the center of the lake. The entire corridor trembled slightly because of his step, giving off a deep, muffled sound. It was as if he was grabbing people's hearts. The faces of the servants nearby turned pale. Of course, they knew who Lin Qianyu was, so they didn't dare to stop him. However, it was their princess on the other side. Chen Xishuan shook her head helplessly. Actually, she didn't want to hurt Lin Qianyu. She even felt a little guilty towards him. If the previous Chen Xishuan had not drowned, they would have gotten married. Unfortunately, the current Chen Xishuan was already in the flaming bar. How could she marry anyone other than Jidong? Chen Xishuan let go of Jidong's hand and took a step forward. She was about to stand in front of Jidong. Judging from Lin Qianyu's current appearance, it was obvious that this matter couldn't be resolved peacefully. At this moment, a big hand appeared on Chen Xishuan's shoulder. Jidong's voice rang in her ears. "Xishuan, let me handle this. This is a matter between men." As soon as he finished speaking, Chen Xishuan's body was transferred to his back. Lin Qianyu walked towards them step by step. With every step he took, his aura would increase a little bit. However, what made Jidong nod secretly was that with the increase of his aura, the anger in Lin Qianyu's eyes gradually decreased. Facing his rival in love who had stolen his wife, Lin Qianyu was able to calm himself down when he was about to enter a real battle. This was not something an ordinary genius could do. Jidong was still standing there, letting Lin Qianyu's aura grow stronger and stronger. The distance between the two of them was getting shorter and shorter. If Lin Qianyu's aura was like a stormy sea, then Jidong was like a towering mountain that could stop the huge waves. No matter how strong the wind and waves were, they would disappear into the 5 elements when they got close to him, and would not affect Chen Xishuan who was behind him at all. "Why did you steal my Xishuan?" Lin Qianyu's eyes were fixed on Jidong's eyes. His spiritual aura and the aura he released were perfectly combined, and he kept attacking Hyoheim. Jidong said lightly, "Two people love each other. Love can't be forced." At this moment, Lin Qianyu was 5 meters away from Jidong and he stopped. This distance was the best distance for a devil master to attack. Lin Qianyu said, "Xishuan and I grew up together. We are childhood sweethearts, and we are truly in love with each other. You have an ordinary appearance. Do you think you can steal Xishuan's love for me with your strange white hair?" Jidong gazed at him and said, "Love is not determined by time. For those who are fated, even if it is the first time they meet, they can fall in love at first sight. For those who are not fated, even if they live together for decades, they can only be ordinary friends. Xishuan has already made it very clear that she sees you as a brother." Lin Qianyu took a deep breath. At this moment, the surrounding plants seemed to have sensed the rhythm of his breathing. They actually moved along with his breath. The life aura released by these plants was absorbed into his body like a whale sucking in water. It was obvious that this was a special wood-based technique. In an instant, the magical wave released by Lin Qianyu's body increased by a few notches. "Brother Lin, please wait." Just at this moment, a loud shout sounded, and a figure flew to Lin Qianyu's side and grabbed his shoulder. It was none other than Chen Xing, the crown prince of Dongmu Empire and the eldest brother of Chen Xishuan. Lin Qianyu did not look at him and said, "Your Highness, please don't stop me. I must fight with this man. He took my Sichuan away." Chen Xing smiled bitterly and said, "Qianyu, this is the imperial palace after all. Don't fight. Father already knows that Sichuan is back, and he asked me to take her to see him. Sigh, this matter should be decided by the elders. Qianyu, let's go together. Don't worry, we will definitely give you an explanation." Lin Qianyu glanced at Ji Dong coldly. The next moment, the huge pressure he released disappeared without a trace. He snorted angrily and turned around to leave. Chen Xing heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Lin Qianyu didn't make a move in the end, and then he gestured to Chen Sichuan and said, "Little sister, quickly come with me. Alas, you've really caused great trouble this time. Oh, you should come along as well." The last sentence was said to Ji Dong. However, the crown prince was obviously not happy with the brother-in-law his sister brought back. Chen Sichuan held Ji Dong's hand and shook it slightly. Their souls were connected. Ji Dong said to you through the soul connection, "Don't worry. Since I have promised you, I will definitely help you." After a while, Ji Dong and Chen Sichuan arrived at the Jia-Yi Palace in the center of the Imperial Palace under Chen Xing's lead. This Jia-Yi Palace was obviously named after the Eastern Jia-Yi Wood. Jia-Yi Palace was the place where the Emperor of Dongmu Empire attended court, and Yi Palace was the place where the Emperor discussed business, which was equivalent to the Emperor's study. The place where Chen Xing brought Ji Dong and Chen Sichuan to was the Yi Palace. As for the luxurious palace, Ji Dong was not in the mood to appreciate it. When they walked into the Yi Palace, he found that there were already many people here. Chen Sichuan wanted to let go of Ji Dong's hand. After all, she was about to meet her father, so she had to restrain herself a little. However, Ji Dong held her hand tightly, not letting her let go. At the same time, he sent her a message that he would take care of everything. Although the Yi Palace was not as big as the Jia-Yi Palace, it was enough to accommodate the emperor and dozens of officials to discuss business. At this moment, in the main seat of the Yi Palace, an old man in his 60s, wearing a dragon robe embroidered with a green dragon, was sitting there. He was the emperor of Dongmu Empire, Chen Xiaofeng. On the left side of him sat a middle-aged couple of about 5 years old, and Lin Qianyu, whom Ji Dong had just met. On the other side sat 2 people. One was a woman wearing a palace dress. She was sitting next to Chen Xiaofeng. From her dress, it could be seen that she was the empress of the Dongmu Empire. If they were discussing military affairs, this empress was obviously not suitable to appear here. However, at this moment, they were dealing with her daughter's marriage, so her participation was very reasonable. Chen Sichuan and the crown prince, Chen Xing, were both born by this empress. Chen Xiaofeng invited the empress, naturally, to make his daughter restrain herself in the process of discussing the marriage. It could be considered as a painstaking effort. There was another person sitting in the main seat next to the empress. Judging from his age, he seemed to be in his 50s. His appearance was somewhat similar to the emperor. He had a dignified bearing and was dressed luxuriously, like a prince. Seeing this person, Ji Dong couldn't help but think of a person. When he and Flaming Bar saved the entire forest demon tribe, the person they faced was Prince Tianlu of Dongmu Empire. Could it be that this was Prince Tianlu, who controlled the third chamber of commerce in the continent, the Golden Eagle Chamber of Commerce? Ji Dong didn't have a good impression of this person at all. "Greetings, father and mother." Chen Xing and Chen Sichuan knelt on the ground together and saluted. Only Ji Dong was still standing there. He only let go of Chen Sichuan's hand, but he didn't have any intention of kneeling down to greet them. The emperor and his wife's eyes fell on their daughter. Their eyes were a little excited. They hadn't seen their daughter for almost 2 years. How could they not miss her? She was the apple of their eye. It could be said that no one in the entire Dongmu Empire could be compared to Chen Sichuan, the saint of Dongmu Empire. "Stand up." Seeing his daughter, although Ji Dong was in a bad mood, Chen Xiaofeng couldn't help but control his emotions. This troublesome matter in front of him had to be solved first. As he spoke, his eyes had already turned to Ji Dong. Looking at Ji Dong's head of white hair, the expression in his eyes slightly changed. He said, "Who are you? Why did you come with my son? Why didn't you kneel when you saw me?" The emperor had the majesty and oppressiveness of the royal family. If it was someone else, although Chen Xiaofeng seemed to be asking a question calmly, it would make people not dare to look at him directly. However, Ji Dong acted as if nothing had happened. He slightly bowed and said, "Greetings, Your Majesty, Her Highness." Chen Xiaofeng fiercely slammed the table and said, "How dare you? Seeing me, you only salute like this?" With both hands behind his back, Ji Dong indifferently smiled and said, "This is enough, because you are Sichuan's parents." The implication was that if the emperor and empress in front of him weren't because of his relationship with Chen Sichuan, he wouldn't even do this simple salute. What a proud brat! Chen Xiaofeng slammed the table in a threatening manner, absolutely not to make things difficult for Ji Dong, but rather for the people next to him to see. At this moment, seeing Ji Dong standing there so proudly, he couldn't help but feel a little nervous. Regarding his daughter's eyesight, Chen Xiaofeng was still very confident. Such a strange white-haired and youthful person who looked even more arrogant than himself. Just what was his background? It seemed that this matter really couldn't be handled carelessly. Otherwise, it would very easily bring trouble to the empire. At this moment, Chen Sichuan had already stood up and stood at Ji Dong's side. Without waiting for Chen Xiaofeng to open his mouth again, she hastily said, "Father, he is called Ji Dong, my teacher at Blazing Academy and also your son's lover." "Teacher? How old is he? Can he still be a teacher?" Sitting at the side, that 50-year-old man in prince attire opened his mouth. Chen Sichuan quickly introduced him to Hyoheim through the soul fusion. Just as Ji Dong guessed, this person was Prince Tianlu. Chen Sichuan's little mouth slightly pouted, saying, "Ambition doesn't depend on age. Ji Dong is the most outstanding teacher at Blazing Academy." "Enough, Your Majesty, I think we don't need to get entangled in these matters. Regarding Qianyu and Sichuan's marriage, what does Your Majesty have to say?" The middle-aged man sitting at Chen Xiaofeng's left opened his mouth. His voice wasn't loud, but it clearly reached everyone's ears. His gaze swept over Ji Dong indifferently, not revealing any imposing manner. But when he opened his mouth, he naturally became the focus of everyone present. Chen Xiaofeng frowned slightly, saying, "Don't be impatient, worthy brother. We will definitely give you an explanation on this matter. Sichuan, tell us, what's going on between you and this young man called Ji Dong?" While speaking, he secretly gave his daughter a meaningful glance. However, Chen Sichuan acted as if she didn't see her father's gaze, slightly bowing towards the couple, saying, "Uncle Lin, Aunt Lin, Sichuan greets you." The woman called Aunt by Chen Sichuan coldly snorted, saying, "We don't deserve it, Your Highness. Let's first explain the matter clearly." Chen Sichuan's voice immediately resounded in Ji Dong's mind. Through Chen Sichuan's introduction, he knew that this couple was Lin Qianyu's parents. The middle-aged man was called Lin Baichuan, and his wife was called Lin Luan. The reason why the wife's surname was also Lin was because of the Lin family's rules. Women who married into the Lin family had to change their surname to Lin. If she really married Lin Qianyu, it would be the same. From the fact that Lin Luan dared to provoke Chen Sichuan without any hesitation, one could see how powerful the Lin family was in the Eastern Wood Empire. She didn't give face to the princess in front of the emperor of the Eastern Wood Empire. If it was anyone else, they would have their entire family destroyed. Chen Sichuan didn't care about Lin Luan's reaction. She looked at her father again, saying, "Father, Mother, when I first came to Blazing Academy, I became Teacher Ji Dong's disciple. When I first met Teacher Ji Dong, we fell in love at first sight. Thus, I started to pursue Teacher Ji Dong. Finally, not long ago, I obtained teacher Ji Dong's approval, and then we could be together. This time, I came back to explain this matter to father and mother. My feelings for brother Qianyu have always been like that of a brother and sister. We are not suitable to be husband and wife. Uncle Lin, Aunt Lin, I'm really sorry. Chen Sichuan's words stunned everyone present. Although they vaguely knew about the relationship between Chen Sichuan and Ji Dong, who would have thought that it was Chen Sichuan who took the initiative to pursue him, and even pursued him for more than a year before he agreed. For a moment, whether it was Emperor Chen Xiaofeng or Lin Baichuan and his wife, their faces were extremely ugly. Chapter 465. Impossible, I don't believe it. Lin Qianyu said angrily, Sichuan, who do you think you are? How could you go after this white-haired guy? He must have done something to you. Tell us, we will help you. Chen Sichuan shook her head gently and said, I'm sorry, brother Qianyu. I have told you very clearly just now. I am with Ji Dong because I really love him. I just want to be with him. This is my biggest wish in this life. I know you like me too, but I can only let you down. Shut up. Chen Xiaofeng couldn't bear it anymore. He slammed the table and stood up. He glared at his daughter and said, Sichuan, do you know what you are talking about? You and Qianyu have been childhood sweethearts since you were young. Your Uncle Lin and I arranged this marriage for you two. Now that the wedding is approaching, you want to break off the engagement? I will never allow it. The marriage between children has always been decided by parents, not to mention you are a princess. You don't need to say anything. The marriage will not change. You must and can only marry Qianyu. Someone, take the princess away and kick this white-haired guy out of the palace. Oh no, directly out of Dongmu City. Chen Xiaofeng couldn't let his daughter continue talking. The Lin family was too important to Dongmu Empire. Lin Baichuan and Lin Luan were obviously on the verge of breaking out. If they were allowed to speak again, there would be no room for reconciliation. At that time, it would be a disaster for the whole empire. For the sake of the country, he wouldn't hesitate to sacrifice his daughter's happiness. Moreover, he didn't think that Ji Dong could bring more happiness to his daughter than Lin Qianyu. In his heart, he had been thinking that it must be his daughter's impulsive decision. She didn't know how to judge a man. Everything would be over after she and Lin Qianyu got married. Lin Luan still wanted to say something, but Lin Baichuan stopped her. Lin Baichuan was also suppressing his anger. Chen Xiaofeng's way of handling this matter was the best he could do. If this matter were to escalate, not only the Lin family would lose face, but the relationship between the Lin family and the imperial family would also deteriorate. This was also the situation that he didn't want to see. His thoughts were the same as Chen Xiaofeng. Time could wash away everything. As long as the marriage didn't change, today's matter could be considered as barely resolved. After hearing Chen Xiaofeng's words, Lin Qianyu's face finally relaxed a little. He held one of his mother's hands with a pleading look on his face. He really liked Chen Sichuan. As long as he could marry Chen Sichuan, he didn't care about such an interlude. Following Emperor Chen Xiaofeng's order, more than 10 silhouettes immediately flashed in from outside. 4 of them were women, and they quickly surrounded Chen Sichuan's side. The other 8 men were all over 40 years old, and it was obvious that their magic power cultivation was above 6 crowns, and they surrounded Ji Dong. Father, you can't do this. Chen Sichuan angrily said. I will marry whoever I like. You can't force me. Chen Xiaofeng was furious. He waved his hand and said, What are you waiting for? Hurry up and take the princess away. Yes, Your Majesty. The 4 women stepped forward at the same time and got closer to Chen Sichuan. They respectfully said, Your Highness, please. Chen Sichuan coldly snorted and said, You want to take me away with just you? As she said that, her clear eyes glowed with a green light. An incomparably powerful aura suddenly burst out from her body. Not only the 4 female evil masters around her, but also the 8 male evil masters surrounding Ji Dong changed their expressions at the same time. Lin Baichuan's and Lin Luan's gazes froze at the same time and fell on Qin Xishuan. Their eyes were full of surprise. Qin Xishuan did not release her yin-yang crown. What she released was her own devil attribute, ultimate wood. The effect was also the attribute suppression produced by the ultimate devil attribute. Under such a strong attribute suppression, the faces of the 4 female devil masters beside her, who were only 6 crowns, immediately changed. They subconsciously took a few steps back, not daring to make a move. Chen Xiaofeng was also shocked by this change. Extreme attribute? How could my daughter have an extreme attribute? For a moment, following the release of Qin Xishuan's extreme wood magic, the atmosphere in the palace suddenly became strange. Qin Xishuan loudly said, "Father, you don't want me to be with Ji Dong because you don't want to offend the Lin family. I'm not a good daughter. I can't listen to you on this matter. If you insist on me marrying Brother Qianyu, then I can only run away with Ji Dong." Ji Dong stood beside Qin Xishuan, listening to her words. He didn't know why, but his heart didn't feel good. He knew Qin Xishuan's feelings for him. Usually she was so gentle and lovely. She never spoke so loudly. But at this moment, in order to fight for this love that she might never be able to fulfill, she didn't hesitate to fall out with her father. This friendship made Ji Dong's heart feel heavy. You're rebelling. Take them both down." Chen Xiaofeng was also angry. As the emperor, his authority was repeatedly challenged by his daughter, especially in front of the Lin family and his younger brother, who was obviously gloating. Chen Xiaofeng's anger was already burning. They were inside the palace. These devil masters didn't dare to destroy anything here. Therefore, when they attacked, although they had released their yin-yang crown, they only used their magic power internally. None of them dared to use magic power to attack. Ji Dong hugged Qin Xishuan with one hand, and with a light fling, he sent her 10 meters away, landing outside of the circle. At this moment, he was the only one left to face the attacks of the 12 people in front of him. 1 against 12, and 12 at the level of 6 crowns. This kid must be crazy. Among the crowd, almost everyone had the same thought. But the next moment their eyes were frozen. At the same time, Ji Dong threw Qin Xishuan away. He took a step forward and at the same time, lightly hit the fist of a devil master who was attacking him. A strange scene appeared. No one saw any magic light appear on Ji Dong's body. But the next moment, the devil master's fist collided with his palm. He didn't even make a sound before he gently fell to the ground. Ji Dong's body did not stop. He had already used the flying snake flash in a small area. His body moved like lightning. Although the distance he moved back was only 1 meter, it was enough for him to easily dodge the attacks of the other 11 people. Then, everyone only saw a blur in front of their eyes. Ji Dong's hands had already hit a total of 11 palms. Each palm hit a level 6 perfection devil master. His movements were too fast. Even if they wanted to dodge, it was impossible. The 11 of them all followed in the footsteps of the first demon master. One by one, they fell to the ground. In the blink of an eye, their faces turned pale. What was even more shocking was that they only fell to the ground. They didn't seem to have suffered any injuries. The ones who spoke were all wood element demon masters. They could naturally feel that the 12 demon masters who attacked Ji Dong didn't have any changes in their vital signs. They were exactly the same as before. What is going on? To them, even Lin Baichuan and his wife, everything that happened in front of them was extremely strange. Lin Baichuan believed that he could also defeat the 12 devil masters who were afraid of him in one move. However, he couldn't defeat his opponents like Ji Dong and make them lose the ability to fight again without hurting them. What was going on? Sorcery. The queen's cultivation was the lowest among the people. She almost cried out in surprise at the first moment. However, her cry was obviously recognized by everyone. Other than sorcery, they really couldn't think of how Ji Dong could do this at his age. Lin Qianyu even shouted directly, Sichuan must have been enchanted by his sorcery. Ji Dong snorted disdainfully and said, You want to be with Sichuan with your little knowledge? From the beginning to the end, he didn't release his yin-yang crown. He had the divine yin-yang lock technique that Flaming Bar taught him. If he didn't want others to see his cultivation level, he definitely wouldn't let anyone see it. With his current cultivation level, even if it was a supreme expert, he wouldn't be able to do it. The 12 Devil Masters from before only had the cultivation of 6 crowns. Compared to Ji Dong, they were really too weak. The reason why Ji Dong was able to do this was because when he attacked, he had the assimilation formation of the 5 elements formation in the palm of his hand. Every slap of his palm would assimilate the opponent's demonic energy, causing them to temporarily lose their demonic energy. Naturally, they would also lose the ability to attack. Of course, this method could only be used on opponents whose cultivation level was far lower than his. Otherwise, it would be impossible to assimilate the opponent's demonic energy. Lin Qianyu snorted angrily. In a flash, he was already in front of Ji Dong. A dazzling green light suddenly exploded from his body. Above his head, a white first-wood sun crown formed, displaying the cultivation level of 7 crowns. 7 crowns, 2 stars, level 74. At the same time, because of the tyrannical strength shown by Ji Dong, Prince Tianlu had also stood up and quickly came to his brother's side. A large number of imperial guards were summoned, and they surrounded Ji Dong, who was standing in the center. For a time, the surging demonic energy filled the entire palace, and all kinds of opposites were being abused at the same time. As the saying goes, when a rival in love meets, their eyes are exceptionally red. Lin Qianyu didn't have the same taboo as the court devil masters. He made a circle with his hands in front of him, and a loud dragon roar had already sounded. The strong first wood demonic energy instantly burst out, converging into the shape of a dragon's head, and went straight to Ji Dong's chest. The green light was extremely condensed, and the treasure light flowed like a real entity. It was full of explosive demonic energy, and even had some characteristics of fire magic. To everyone's surprise, in the face of Lin Qianyu's ultimate attack, Ji Dong actually put his hands behind his back, as if he didn't see it at all. Ji Dong, be careful! Chen Sichuan couldn't help but exclaim. But the next moment, the dragon-shaped green light had already fiercely imprinted on Ji Dong's chest. The dazzling green light almost instantly spread to every corner of Ji Dong's body, but Ji Dong just stood there proudly. The green light on his body was like lightning, but he didn't move at all, and he didn't even take half a step back. Lin Qianyu saw that Ji Dong actually used his body to block his attack, and he suddenly became bold. The demonic energy in his body was instantly raised to the limit, and 2 consecutive palm strikes hit Ji Dong's chest fiercely. Humph! Ji Dong snorted, and his footsteps moved slightly. He moved back 2 steps before he could stand firm, and at the same time, he shouted, Sichuan, don't come over. Chen Sichuan, who was about to rush over, suddenly stopped. She heard Ji Dong say indifferently, Lin Qianyu, these 3 strikes are Sichuan's apology to you for breaking the promise of marriage. If you attack again, don't blame me for being impolite. He only attacked 3 times for me. In an instant, Chen Sichuan's eyes became misty. At this moment, she seemed to have returned to the days when she was with Ji Dong and lived a happy life every day. She drank the fine wine he made, silently watched him cultivate, and felt the deep love he had for her. She thought and thought. She was already crazy. Who needs you to give way? Lin Qianyu was furious. When his attack fell on Ji Dong's body, he clearly felt that Ji Dong's demonic energy was rippling like water. That was the demonic energy of the fire attribute, but it was as gentle as the demonic energy of the water attribute. Lin Qianyu's attack seemed to hit him, but in fact, less than 30% of it was injected into his body. What on earth was this person's cultivation? He must know some demonic methods, or else, why didn't he release the yin-yang crown? If he was really as young as he looked, how could he have a stronger demonic energy than me? The more Lin Qianyu thought about it, the more he felt that Ji Dong was not a normal person. A dazzling cyan flame suddenly burst out from Lin Qianyu's body. He slightly swayed on the spot, leaving a series of residual shadows. His face also became serious, and his hands alternately hit forward. However, he did not hit Hyoheim, but the air in front of him. Chapter 466. Ji Dong clearly sensed that Lin Qianyu's mana was rapidly stacking up in the air as he struck out his palms. His mana was increasing exponentially. This is the Lin family's Thousand Leaves Palm. It's a magic skill with multiple attributes. When the Extermination Legion's Thousand Dragons combination skill was improved, the Thousand Leaves Palm was influenced by it. Chen Sichuan's reminder reached Ji Dong's ears in time. At this moment, she had just woken up from being moved. She was not worried about Ji Dong's battle with Lin Qianyu. Although Lin Qianyu was a genius and a rare genius from the neighboring family, his opponent was Ji Dong, a holy king who surpassed him in terms of talent and effort. It was undeniable that Lin Qianyu had an extremely important position in the Lin family. Even the two ancestors of the Lin family said that Lin Qianyu's talent was better than theirs when they were young. However, if Yin Zhaoyang and Yin Zhaorong were to evaluate Ji Dong, they would definitely say that his talent was incomparable to that of a human being. Facing Lin Qianyu's Thousand Leaves Palm, Ji Dong finally moved his hands behind his back. In the next moment, Lin Baichuan and Lin Luan's expressions changed drastically. What they saw was a figure like a butterfly flying through flowers. Ji Dong's movement was like a dazzling flash of lightning. Even Lin Baichuan and Lin Luan couldn't see how he moved. In a flash of light, Lin Qianyu's Thousand Leaf Palms, which were quickly overlaying each other, disappeared. With the flying snake flash, Ji Dong's speed was close to teleportation, while the Dark Moon Dance was close to teleportation. When the two skills were combined, their power was naturally extraordinary. If it was half a year ago, Ji Dong wouldn't have reacted like this. However, being tortured by the Dragon Sovereign for half a year wasn't in vain. Being beaten up every day, Ji Dong's combat ability had improved by leaps and bounds. Even under the Dragon Sovereign's domineering pressure, he could still exert his strength, let alone facing an opponent whose cultivation base was lower than his. The Flying Snake Flash, the Dark Moon Dance, and the Bright Sun Hunt were used in one go. Ji Dong's movement was so fast that Lin Qianyu's demonic power could not affect him at all. In a flash, he had already arrived in front of Lin Qianyu and stretched out his right hand to grab Lin Qianyu's throat. At this moment, the demonic power of Lin Qianyu's Thousand Leaves Palm was actually behind Ji Dong. In other words, Ji Dong had used Flying Snake Flash and Dark Moon Dance to dodge the Thousand Leaves Palm's demon power. He had used his own body to separate Lin Qianyu's body from the demon power released by Lin Qianyu. At the same time, he used Bright Sun Hunt with his right hand and aimed at Lin Qianyu's throat. Lin Qianyu deserved to be the most outstanding disciple of the young generation of Lin family. Without seeing Ji Dong's movement clearly and judging Ji Dong's real strength, his body reacted subconsciously. Even though his mind could not keep up with Ji Dong's movement, his body automatically dodged Ji Dong's attack. At the same time, he resolutely gave up the Thousand Leaves Palm and raised his hand. Dense cyan light instantly converged into a cyan light ball in front of him to protect him. He didn't want to make any mistakes, but he wanted to make no mistakes. Unfortunately, his opponent was Ji Dong. The Bright Sun Hunt, as the skill of the Flame Tyrant, was even more powerful than any one of the Scorching Sun Triple Strike. How could it be so easy to dodge? Ji Dong slid forward and his right hand instantly turned golden. He forcibly broke the cyan light ball in front of Lin Qianyu and accurately grabbed his neck. Lin Qianyu's body, which was leaning backward, was directly lifted up and floated in the air. One strike. That's right. Just one strike, and the battle was over. It did not mean that Lin Qianyu was too weak, but it was Ji Dong's way of attacking. When fighting with him, the whole process would be decided in an instant. However, the outcome of the battle was absolutely shocking to the onlookers. Ji Dong's golden right hand was filled with demonic power, but the moment he grabbed Lin Qianyu, all his meridians were sealed, so he could not even struggle. His right hand lifted Lin Qianyu off the ground, but Ji Dong's eyes were still so calm, as if he had just done something insignificant. The change happened so fast that even Lin Baichuan and his wife could not save their son in time. Seeing Lin Qianyu fall into Ji Dong's hands, they dared not to act rashly. As long as Ji Dong exerted a little force, Lin Qianyu would die here. At this moment, Ji Dong had become the center of attention in the E-Palace. The Imperial Devil Masters around released their coercion without hesitation, trying to oppress Ji Dong to a certain extent. However, with their cultivation, how could they pose any threat to Ji Dong? Ji Dong threw Lin Qianyu's body in front of Lin Baichuan and his wife casually. At the same time, he unsealed Lin Qianyu's meridians. Lin Baichuan grabbed his son's vest with his right hand and put Lin Qianyu beside him. At the same time, he quickly sensed the condition of Lin Qianyu's bloodline. After making sure that his son was fine, he was relieved. Demonic magic. He must have used demonic magic. Lin Qianyu could no longer keep calm like he did when he first saw Ji Dong. He seemed to be hysterically excited. It was no wonder that he was like this. Since he was young, he had been the pride of the family and the most outstanding genius. He was only 27 years old this year, but he had already become the leader of the younger generation in the family. His strength was even close to that of his father's generation. The blow in front of him was too heavy for him. Facing Ji Dong, he felt that he didn't have the slightest ability to fight back. Enough! Lin Baichuan shouted in a low voice and slapped Lin Qianyu's face with the back of his hand. Lin Qianyu staggered and his voice stopped. Lin Qianyu stared blankly at his father. Since he was young, it was the first time that his father had hit him like this. For a moment, the huge difference stunned him and he stood there, unable to say a word. Lin Baichuan and his wife, Lin Luan, walked forward slowly and stopped 10 meters away from Ji Dong. Under the gazes of many Imperial Devil Masters, Emperor Dongmu, Chen Xiaofeng, and Prince Tianlu, Lin Baichuan actually bowed slightly to Ji Dong and said in a deep voice, "Thank you for your mercy." Lin Qianyu's mentality was not normal, but Lin Baichuan was a bystander. He could see clearly that although Ji Dong's strength also shocked him, it was definitely not demonic magic. There was no doubt that there was a huge gap between his son and this person's strength. This was completely a gap in strength. The young man in front of him did not release much demonic power, but Lin Baichuan's heart was filled with a sense of oppression. Looking at Ji Dong, he could feel a deep sense of threat. He had not felt this kind of situation for a long time. As the current family head of the Lin family, although he had not broken through to the level of a supreme master, this was the first time that he felt so oppressed when facing an opponent other than a supreme master. I have no enmity with him, so naturally I will not kill him. However, if he continues to pester me, then don't blame me for being rude. Ji Dong said lightly. Chen Sichuan broke off the engagement because of him, and Ji Dong also felt a little guilty for Lin Qianyu. Therefore, he did not hit him hard. He did not use his demonic power from the beginning to the end, because he was afraid of hurting Lin Qianyu. Of course, his tolerance was limited. Tyrants were never good-tempered. Lin Baichuan and Lin Luanfu respectively emitted the light of first wood and second wood magic respectively. Lin Baichuan said in a deep voice, "Although your excellency has shown mercy and let my son go, today's matter is related to the reputation of my Lin family. It is the greatest shame in the history of the Lin family. If your excellency cannot stay here, then please take our lives." This shame can only be washed with your Excellency's blood or our blood. There is no other way. Ji Dong looked at Lin Baichuan coldly. From his voice, one could hear the determination. Obviously, from the strength that Ji Dong had shown just now, Lin Baichuan was not confident to face him, so he said such words. Brother, you can't do this. This is the imperial palace of the Dongmu Empire. Naturally, it should be solved by the alliance. Chen Xiaofeng said as he walked out and stood side by side with Lin Baichuan and his wife. Lin Baichuan turned his head and looked at Chen Xiaofeng. He saw the deep apology in Chen Xiaofeng's eyes. His face slightly relaxed and he said lightly, Qianyu is not lucky enough to marry Sichuan. That is because he is not charming enough. He can't blame others. His Majesty and I are still brothers. Their marriage cannot affect our brotherhood. After hearing Lin Baichuan's words, both Chen Xiaofeng and Chen Sichuan, who was not far behind Ji Dong, were greatly relieved. Although Lin Baichuan was angry, he could still maintain such a clear mind. He was worthy of his identity as the family head. However, Lin Baichuan's tone changed. He raised his finger and pointed at Hyoheim. This person and Sichuan came to our palace to break off the engagement in front of His Majesty. This is a great humiliation to our family. Our Lin family cannot tolerate this. Your Majesty, if you still recognize me as your brother, then please don't interfere in this matter. Let our Lin family solve it ourselves. Otherwise, our Lin family will no longer have the face to live in the Dongmu Empire. Brother, why do you have to do this? I will order my men to take him down. Then, you can deal with him. Chen Xiaofeng sighed. He sincerely admired Lin Baichuan's actions. Because of this, he was even more angry at Ji Dong and Chen Sichuan for coming back. Lin Baichuan shook his head and said, I can't judge the strength of this young man. However, there is one thing that I am very clear about. In this place, unless my wife and I take action, His Majesty's men will not be able to take him down. Furthermore, he showed mercy and spared my son's life. No matter what, I must give him a fair chance to fight. At this moment, there was only one thought in Chen Xiaofeng's mind. That was to not let Lin Baichuan lose. Otherwise, it would bring a great disaster to the Dongmu Empire. However, at the same time, Chen Xiaofeng couldn't help but look at Ji Dong in a new light. Who was this young man that his daughter brought back? He seemed to be in his early 20s, but he was able to defeat Lin Qianyu so easily. Moreover, Lin Baichuan and his wife valued him so much. His cultivation was immeasurable. Such a young man's future was unimaginable. If Chen Xiaofeng had 2 daughters of the Dongmu Saintess, it wouldn't be a problem to marry one of them. This young man's future was boundless. However, at this moment, he only had one choice. Obviously, Ji Dong was not the one he chose. Lin Baichuan looked at Hyoheim and said, This is the Imperial Palace. It's inconvenient to fight here. How about we go outside? Ji Dong said indifferently, As you wish. As he spoke, he turned around and walked outside. There seemed to be an invisible pressure spreading from his body. Those palace magicians didn't dare to block his way. Ji Dong walked to Chen Sichuan's side. Chen Sichuan looked at him with concern. Ji Dong smiled and shook his head at her. Chen Sichuan immediately understood and nodded at him. The two of them did not speak, but they already understood each other through the exchange of glances. Therefore, Chen Sichuan didn't go out with Ji Dong. Instead, she stood there with her hands down. She waited quietly for her father and mother to come before she followed them. Chen Xiaofeng glared at his daughter and said, what should I say to you? A mother loved her daughter more. The Empress pulled Chen Sichuan into her arms and said in a low voice, Your Majesty, since it has come to this, we can only take one step at a time. It's useless to blame Sichuan. Seeing that Lin Baichuan and his wife had already followed behind Ji Dong, Chen Xiaofeng lowered his voice and asked his daughter, Sichuan, tell father, what is the identity of this Ji Dong that you brought back? Chen Sichuan shook her head and said, I'm sorry, father. I can't say. If Ji-dong is willing, he will tell me himself. If he doesn't say, I can't say more. Otherwise, he won't be happy. Looking at his daughter's obedient appearance, Chen Xiaofeng couldn't help but be at a loss for a moment. He murmured, a grown girl can't be kept at home. As expected, a grown girl can't be kept at home. Does that brat really have some kind of sorcery to make our little demoness of Tumu so obedient? Father, Chen Sichuan said in a low voice. The Lin family was a frequent visitor of the Tumu Imperial Palace. Naturally, they were very familiar with this place. After leaving the Yi-Palace, Lin Baichuan and his wife made an inviting gesture and brought Ji-dong to the west side of the palace. On the west side of the palace there was a martial arts field. It was a place specially for the children of the royal family to practice. It covered an area of 1 square kilometer and was the largest open space in the palace. It was the most suitable place for a competition. When they arrived at the martial arts field, Lin Baichuan and his wife stopped one after another. Ji-dong also stood in front of them. At this time, Lin Qianyu's face was pale. He looked at Ji-dong from afar with his fists clenched tightly. His eyes were filled with hatred. Chapter 467. How would you like to teach me? Ji-dong asked. Lin Baichuan said in a low voice, I just said, you brought shame to the Lin clan. I will take care of this. Sister Luan, step back. Let me fight to the death with this young man. No, Baichuan, let me do it. Our cultivation levels are about the same. You are the head of the Lin clan. The Lin clan cannot do without you. Lin Luan said hurriedly. Chen Xiaofeng agreed with her. Chen Xiaofeng hoped that Lin Luan would be the one to fight and not Lin Baichuan. If something happened to Lin Luan, at least Lin Baichuan would be there. The relationship between the Imperial clan and the Lin clan would not completely collapse. If something happened to Lin Baichuan, they would be in big trouble. Lin Baichuan shook his head and said, Sister Luan, you don't understand. There are some things a man must do. At that moment, a cold and arrogant voice rang in their ears. You don't need to talk anymore. Come at me together. Lin Baichuan and Lin Luan turned around at the same time and glared at Hyoheim. Lin Baichuan said in a low voice, Young man, do you know what you are saying? Ji-dong said indifferently, Since you have decided that I brought shame to the Lin clan, what does it matter what I say? Seeing that you love each other so much, there is no need to talk anymore. Come at me together. If you lose, I don't want you to use your blood to wash away the shame. I just want you to put an end to Si Xian's marriage. Just don't bother me anymore. Ji-dong's words made Lin Baichuan angry. Ever since he became famous, this was the first time he had been looked down upon like this. In terms of age, they were both in their 50s. In terms of status, Lin Baichuan was the head of the Lin clan. To be asked to fight 1 against 2 by a young man in his 20s, they could no longer suppress the anger in their hearts. Lin Luan shouted angrily. She had already extended her body and raised both of her arms. A dark green light condensed into a huge ball of light and enveloped her body. A milky white flower with 6 petals appeared behind her. It was the transformation of the Yi-wood totem, 6 directions. On top of Lin Luan's head, the 8-crown 86 yin corona shone with a gloomy light. As she leaped into the air and released her magic, a large number of plants in the palace began to move according to her rhythm. A strong aura of life gathered above her head like a wave, covering the palace with a layer of dark green light. Under this dark green light, although the sun could still be seen, it was as if everyone was wearing the sunglasses that Ji-dong had in his previous life. Half of the sun's light was blocked. A vibrant aura pervaded the entire martial arts arena. Vaguely, there was Ji-dong felt as if he had arrived in another world. It was no longer a martial arts arena, but a world woven by vines that had grown for thousands of years. Demon area. Ji-dong growled. He definitely wouldn't underestimate Lin Baichuan and his wife. Even though they were both 8-crown demonic masters and not supremes, The demonic masters of these large clans were completely different from normal demonic masters. They had all sorts of secret techniques that had been passed down for hundreds or even thousands of years. Normal demonic masters definitely couldn't compare to them. The same level of demonic power released by them was completely different from that of normal demonic masters. Although his fight with Lin Qianyu seemed easy, Lin Qianyu's reaction speed and demonic power had left a deep impression on Ji Dong. If it wasn't for his Phoenix Dance Dragon Snake transformation and his fusion with the Divine Flame Saint Monarch armor, those 3 attacks would have been enough to heavily injure him. Even so, there was still a dull pain in his chest. He needed to rely on the life energy of the core of life to heal that slight injury. That's right, Demon Area 1000 Threads. Brat, I don't kill nameless people. Tell me where you came from. Lin Luan was a hot-tempered iron lady. Being provoked by Ji Dong like this, she had long since lost her patience. However, she was also very experienced and knew that Ji Dong would not be easy to deal with. So, she immediately released her demon area. Seeing that his wife had already made her move, Lin Baichuan retreated to the side with a gloomy expression. He observed quietly. The biggest reason why he felt threatened by Ji Dong was because he and his wife couldn't see through this young man's cultivation. There's no harm in telling you. Ji Dong stood in the same place. He didn't have any emotional changes because of Lin Luan's 1000 Threads demon area. Today, when I came back with Si Xian, you must think that I am a brat who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. I am just a commoner. How could I be together with Saint Dongmu? His Majesty also thought the same. In terms of the benefits that I can bring to Dongmu Empire, His Majesty must also think that I am far from being comparable to the Lin family. However, he also guessed that I must have some background. So, he was merciful to me. He only ordered people to drive me out of Dongmu City instead of directly capturing me. Later, when Senior Lin Baichuan wanted to fight with me, His Majesty was in a hurry to make his stand clear and sent people to capture me. Am I right? Ji Dong's words were very calm, but each of them was extremely sharp and piercing to Chen Xiaofeng's heart. Chen Xiaofeng's face suddenly became gloomy, but he had to admit that what Ji Dong said was right. Even Lin Luan was not in a hurry to attack. They were all very curious about the background of this white-haired young man. How could they not be surprised when such a young man with such a high cultivation suddenly appeared out of nowhere? Ji Dong continued, I understand. Even if the power behind me is as powerful as that of brother Lin Qianyu, your Majesty will not choose me. Because the Lin family has always been close to the Dongmu Empire, and the Lin family is like the pillar of the empire, the foundation of the Dongmu Empire. However, if I say that the power behind me is at least twice or even several times that of the Lin family, what will your Majesty think? As soon as Ji Dong's words came out, Chen Xiaofeng and Lin Baichuan's hearts immediately trembled. They looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Although they wouldn't completely believe what Ji Dong said, Ji Dong was so young and so powerful, no one would believe that he didn't have any power behind him. Ji Dong made a habitual gesture of putting his hands behind his back. He looked up at Lin Luan in the sky and said, I'm not saying this to avoid this battle, nor am I hoping that His Majesty will change his mind. I just want to tell everyone that Si Xian following me is not a disgrace to her identity as the Saintess of Dongmu. So, let me introduce myself in detail. My name is Ji Dong. I'm sure everyone is familiar with the surname Ji. Chen Xiaofeng was shocked and couldn't help but ask, You are from the imperial family of the Empire of Central Earth? Ji Dong nodded and said, That's right. My grandfather is the Prince of Equality of the Empire of Central Earth. My elder brother is the current Crown Prince of the Empire of Central Earth, Ji Yeshang. Hearing this, Chen Xiaofeng felt as if something had exploded in his mind. His vision turned blank and he couldn't speak. Even Lin Baichuan felt the same. In an instant, his expression changed greatly. The resolute look on his face disappeared without a trace. Tyrant? You are the tyrant who created the 5 elements cycle formation? The tyrant who united the evil master and the chief elder of the Elder Council? Prince Tianlu cried out involuntarily. Ji Dong nodded and said indifferently, That's right. The 5 elements cycle formation was created by me. My great-grandfather is Ji Chongxin of the Heavenly Dipper. My great-grandmother is Shangguan Yinkong of the Great Fortune. My grandmaster is Yin Zhaoyang of the Victorious Light. My master's wife is Yin Zhaorong of the Great Unity. As for myself, I am the Yin-Yang Double Fire of the Heavenly Stem Holy Disciple. After Si Xian followed me, she also joined the Heavenly Stem Holy Disciple and is now known as the Heavenly Stem Holy Disciple. As Ji Dong spoke, a strong demonic power was suddenly released from his body. Gold and black flames burned on both sides of his body. He was still in the Thousand Threads demonic domain, but Lin Luan's Thousand Threads demonic domain did not seem to have any effect on him. What a joke! Ji Dong had been beaten up by the Dragon Emperor's Dragon Diamond tyrannical demon domain almost every day for the past 6 months. His resistance to domains had increased exponentially. An 8-crown Devil Master's demonic domain was not a big threat to him. Until now, Ji Dong had not released his Yin-Yang crown. However, his strong ultimate dual fire had already told Chen Xiaofeng his identity. As an emperor, he was naturally a wise person. Otherwise, he would not have inherited the throne. However, at this moment, Emperor Dongmu could not say a word. He had completely lost his judgment of the situation in front of him. Tyrant Ji Dong. Yes, I should have thought of this name long ago. Since the 5 elements mutual generation and circulation formation was spread, the word tyrant had been well known on the continent, far more than the name Thunder Emperor. However, most people only knew the word tyrant, but not Ji Dong's real name. Therefore, when Chen Xiaofeng heard the name Ji Dong, he did not think much about it. At this moment, when he thought of the word tyrant, Chen Xiaofeng's mind became extremely complicated. No wonder he was so powerful at such a young age. No wonder he was so powerful at such a young age. There were 4 supreme masters behind him. He himself was also an extraordinary figure. He had gone to the Holy Evil Island twice, and survived the great tribulation of the Holy Evil Island. What's more, he created the 5 elements mutual generation and circulation formation. As the leader of the Heavenly Stem Saints, each of these titles was shocking enough. If the continent were to select the most influential young man under the age of 50, no one could compete with him. No wonder his daughter fell in love with him at first sight. Lin Qianyu was outstanding, but compared with this tyrant in front of her, there was a huge gap between them. Why didn't I think of it before? Chen Xiaofeng regretted in his heart. He dared to follow Si Xian back to the palace alone, knowing that Si Xian has a fiancé here. This courage is not possessed by ordinary people. What Chen Xiaofeng could think of course, Lin Baichuan could also think of. He knew that this time the Lin family was really in trouble, and this trouble was even more tricky. If they let Ji Dong go and let him be with Chen Xishuan, how would the Lin family be able to face others in the future? However, what could they do if they didn't let Ji Dong go? Not to mention whether they could keep him or not, the power behind this guy was something that the entire Lin family couldn't afford to offend. What should they do? A huge question mark arose in Lin Baichuan's heart. No matter who you are, I won't let you go since you have taken my daughter-in-law away from me. Lin Luan shouted angrily. Her body soared into the air again, and her eyes flashed with electricity. She waved her hands in front of her, and suddenly, a strong green light flashed. A huge green bird appeared under her body. The green bird was 8 meters long, and its wingspan was 10 meters. When it appeared, it seemed to cover the sky. After carrying Lin Luan's body, its wings shook violently, and its huge body shot towards Ji Dong like an arrow. Hearing his wife's words, Lin Baichuan's heart suddenly brightened up. Yes, no matter what, it was this guy who took my daughter-in-law away from me. Logically speaking, my side isn't at a disadvantage. No matter what, I'll teach this guy a lesson first. Thinking of this, his heart felt a bit relieved. In fact, when he thought of this, his hostility towards Ji Dong had clearly weakened. As the head of the Lin family, he didn't want to cause trouble that could lead to the extinction of the Lin family. At the same time that the green bird moved, Lin Luan's thousand threads demonic domain also moved. Within the dark green demonic domain, streaks of dark green light surged. They were like huge vines that wrapped around Ji Dong from all directions. With regards to the demonic domain, Ji Dong had received detailed guidance from Yin Zhaoyang. The reason why the demonic domain could become the symbol of an 8-crown demon master, and could greatly increase the power of an 8-crown demon master, was because the demonic domain did not require the demon master to release too much demon power to support it. The so-called demonic domain was the 8-crown demon masters using their own abilities to communicate with the power of heaven and earth, creating a certain resonance. In a true sense, it was a method that borrowed the power of heaven and earth to attack and defend. The more powerful the demonic domain, the larger the area it covered, and the more difficult it was to control. Those thick, dark green rays of light drew support from the rich wood attribute life aura in the air of the Eastern Wood Empire. Without a doubt, it was much easier for a wood attribute magician to display their strength in the Eastern Wood Empire than in other countries. Lin Luan did not expect her thousand threads demonic domain to be able to directly lock onto Ji Dong. As long as it could affect his movements and prevent him from displaying the speed he had displayed earlier, it would be enough. Seeing that Ji Dong had yet to release the yin-yang crown, Lin Luan could not help but reveal a cold smile. Kid, even if you have ultimate demon power, there is no way you can win in such a careless situation. Just as the thousand threads demonic domain was about to wrap around him, Ji Dong's eyes suddenly lit up. Immediately after, the ultimate dual flames burning around his body instantly condensed behind him. It was the pattern of the yin-yang fire formation. In an instant, the dense ultimate demon power aura increased exponentially, and the ultimate dual fire attribute suppression was fully released in the arena. Chapter 468. The strong attribute suppression did not seem to be affected by Lin Luan's thousand threads of demonic domain at all. The gigantic green bird was carrying Lin Luan, intending to take the opportunity when Ji Dong was surrounded by the demonic domain to defeat him with a single strike. She wanted to get back at Ji Dong for killing Lin Qianyu in an instant. In Lin Luan's mind, her understanding of Ji Dong was far from enough. In her opinion, no matter how much of a genius Ji Dong was, his cultivation was only slightly higher than her son's. In the previous battle, it was only because Ji Dong was better at speed that he managed to catch her son off guard, which allowed him to win so easily. At this moment, Lin Luan suddenly felt the strong pressure from Ji Dong's ultimate dual fire, and her heart clenched. Only then did she realize that the young man in front of her was not as simple as she thought. The powerful attribute suppression made her feel suffocated. Unlike Chen Sichuan's ultimate Yi-Wood demon, Ji Dong's ultimate dual fire had a certain restraining effect on the wood element, not to mention that he was a dual yin and yang elemental existence. With the suppression, Lin Luan had no choice but to use at least 30% of her demon power to protect herself, in case she was affected by the attribute suppression and caused her demon power to become chaotic. If that happened, there was no point in continuing the battle. After withstanding the attribute suppression from Ji Dong, Lin Luan unleashed all her power, including the power of the demonic domain, to the maximum. Not only did the green bird not weaken, but it became even faster. Layers of dark green light gushed out from Lin Luan's body and covered the green bird's body. It was a special kind of thin and slender vines. These vines were solid, and as they stuck close to the green bird, they actually isolated Ji Dong's attribute suppression. The thin vines that Lin Luan used came from a seed called the Ghost Silk Vine. As long as it was activated by Ewood mana, the Ghost Silk Vine's seed would grow rapidly and become as thin as steel. This vine had a special characteristic, and that was its toughness. It was not only reflected in its body, but also in its ability to isolate any attribute of mana. No matter what attribute of mana a skill was, as long as it landed on the vine, it would be greatly reduced. Unless the attack power exceeded its limit, the Ghost Silk Vine was an excellent mana weapon and armor. Of course, it needed Ewood mana to sustain it. Once it lost its mana, it would quickly wither. In order to defeat Jidong as soon as possible and restore the Lin family's face, Lin Luan could be said to have put in a lot of effort. The Ghost Silk Vine seeds were not easy to obtain. She used more than 10 of them at once, and under the activation of her mana, they completely covered the green bird. With the protection of the Ghost Silk Vine, Jidong's attribute suppression was no longer a threat to the green bird. Its huge body swooped down, and it looked as if it wanted to destroy Jidong in an instant. An 8-crown demon master and a class 9 magical beast. How terrifying was their combined attack power! Even the spectators in the distance couldn't help but change their expressions. The one with the most interesting expression was the Emperor of the Eastern Wood Empire. Chen Xiaofeng hoped that Lin Luan could win, but he also hoped that Jidong wouldn't be hurt. For a moment, only he could understand his complicated feelings. The green bird's sudden acceleration immediately alerted Jidong. With his amazing eyesight, he clearly saw that Lin Luan had used the Ghost Silk Vine to cover the green bird's body. Although he didn't know what the Ghost Silk Vine was, he could guess that it was to resist his attribute suppression. His eyes narrowed, and Jidong was ready to attack. If he didn't attack and let the opponent's momentum rise to the peak, he would also be in trouble. After all, he was facing an 8-crown expert from an aristocratic family, and he was riding a 9th-grade magical beast. However, right at this moment, Jidong suddenly felt an agitation in his chest. 2 extremely excited emotions were being transmitted from the core of life in his chest. Feeling this emotional fluctuation, Jidong felt a sudden warmth in his heart. It was Maotai and Wuliangye. They usually wouldn't be like this. Today, it was because he had suffered some minor injuries and needed time to recover, so he took the initiative to ask to fight. Jidong didn't disappoint the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon's goodwill. He withdrew the mana he had gathered and connected his mind with the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon. He raised the core of life in front of his chest, and 2 resonant dragon roars rang out. A beam of black and white light shot out from his chest like a bolt of lightning. This beam of light expanded in the wind, and in the blink of an eye, it had already grown to more than 17 meters in length. The enormous body and the extremely shocking dragon roar startled the blue bird that was diving down, and it immediately slowed down a little. When everyone saw the appearance of the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon, they couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Who had ever seen such a strange dragon? Everything else aside, just the fact that it could fly without wings and had 2 large heads was enough to shock everyone. As soon as the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon appeared, its 2 heads and 4 eyes glowed brightly. Its arrogance was even greater than that of Jidong's. With a sway of its body, it was already charging towards the diving green bird. The Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon didn't know how to restrain itself like Jidong. From the beginning until now, Jidong hadn't used his full strength. The reason was very simple. After all, this was the opponent's territory. Holding back a bit of strength would be useful at a critical moment. He couldn't let the opponent easily figure out his strength. After all, the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon wasn't a human, and it hadn't reached the 10th grade yet. Its intelligence wasn't inferior to that of a human's. When faced with an enemy, what it needed to do was use the fastest and fiercest method to defeat the enemy. When its huge body that was 17 meters long swayed in the air, there was an obvious explosion in the air. The strength of the sacred evolution fire dragon's swaying body could be seen from the battle with the Dragon Emperor in the Dragon Valley. With the combination of the vibration of its body and the talent of transmigration, even the Dragon Emperor's dragon drill and tyrannical demonic domain couldn't stop them, let alone today. Although they were still at the 9th grade, compared to half a year ago, the sacred evolution fire dragon first scripture had been reborn. Even the Dragon Kings weren't willing to spar with them. Explosive power, ruthless attacks, and persistent attacks. These were the adjectives that the Dragon Clan used to describe them. The sacred evolution fire dragon sped up and used Ji-Dong's flying snake flash. The bluebird had been diving downwards, so the sacred evolution fire dragon sped up and arrived next to the bluebird. The blue bird obviously saw the appearance of the sacred evolution fire dragon, but it never thought that it would arrive so quickly. The sacred evolution fire dragon and the blue bird were both magical beasts, so the connection between them was naturally even stronger. The blue bird could obviously sense the terror of the sacred evolution fire dragon. Although she had been frightened, she still had her human companion on her back. So the blue bird was not afraid for a moment. It opened its mouth, and a streak of azure light shot towards the sacred evolution fire dragon. At the same time, it came to a screeching halt in the air, perfectly displaying its strength as a Class 9 magical beast. It turned its body halfway, and the right half of its huge wing directly swung towards the sacred evolution fire dragon. The blue bird's wing was no different from a 5-meter-wide axe. With the large amount of wood attributed magical energy, its wing was as tough as steel. Even if there was a small mountain in front of it, it would still be chopped in half by its wing. The bluebird's response was without a doubt excellent. The streak of light had already arrived in front of the sacred evolution fire dragon. The sacred evolution fire dragon's eyes narrowed, and it opened its mouth to suck in the 5-grain liquid. At the same time, a strange black halo appeared behind it. A strange scene occurred. Lin Luan was shocked to find that the azure light from the blue bird had been directly swallowed by the strange black dragon's head. If the sacred evolution fire dragon had only blocked the blue bird's attack, Lin Luan wouldn't have been surprised at all. However, it had been swallowed just like that. This left her completely dumbfounded. It was the same assimilation spell, but when used on the sacred evolution fire dragon, its effect was even greater than that of Ji-Dong's. The 5-grain liquid swallowed the green light in one gulp, and the sacred evolution fire dragon's body also froze in midair. Everyone could clearly hear a loud explosion in the air. The sacred evolution fire dragon's huge body seemed to completely defy the laws of physics. It suddenly swung its huge dragon tail upwards, meeting the blue bird's wing head-on. In terms of body length, the sacred evolution fire dragon was almost twice the length of the blue bird. Not only was its huge tail terrifyingly powerful, it was also extremely fast. It struck the side of the blue bird's wing heavily, and the explosion in the air was the sound of the dragon's tail tearing through the air. The violent explosion was accompanied by a large amount of magical ripples in the air. Large amounts of dark green light were released in the air. When Lin Luan realized that something was wrong, she had already poured all of her magical power into the blue bird's body. However, she had still underestimated the sacred evolution fire dragon's strength. Yes, the sacred evolution fire dragon was also a Class 9 magical beast, but it was a Class 9 magical beast with extreme magical power. Furthermore, they were two bodies in one. Even a Class 10 dragon would have to take a detour when facing the sacred evolution fire dragon, let alone the blue bird. When the blue bird's wing collided with the sacred evolution fire dragon's tail, it was like a dragonfly trying to shake a stone pillar. The blue bird's huge body was like a broken kite, sent flying into the air by the sacred evolution fire dragon's tail. All Lin Luan could do was hold on tightly to the blue bird's body to prevent herself from falling. Roar! The Moutai and 5-grain liquid let out proud roars. Ji Dong, who was watching from below, suddenly felt his heart skip a beat. He cursed inwardly, but it was already too late to stop them. As they roared, the Mautai and 5-grain liquid each spat out a powerful ball of light, chasing after the blue bird that had been sent flying in the air. Crap! Lin Baichuan had already sensed that something was wrong when he saw the 2 balls of light, but both he and Ji Dong were on the ground. It was already too late to stop them. Stop! Ji Dong shouted. His soul vibrated directly in the minds of the Mautai and 5-grain liquid. The sacred evolution fire dragon froze for a moment. The 2 balls of light that it had spat out were about to catch up to Lin Luan, but under their powerful control, they drew an arc in the air and flew higher before colliding. Suddenly, the heavens and the earth shook. The moment the black and white lights collided, Lin Luan's 1,000 threads of demonic domain was crushed into powder. The bright sun in the sky seemed to have shifted, and on the other side, a dark moon rose. The strong black and white light intertwined in the air to form the shape of a Tai Chi, circling in the air. The suffocating pressure fell upon the ground. In an instant, the ordinary servants and guards all fell to the ground. Even the demon masters all paled. They used all their strength to release their demonic energy in an attempt to resist the pressure descending from the sky. However, the gap between them was too big. How could they resist this power? Even though it was only a pressure descending from the sky, the demon masters under the level of 6 crowns were all paralyzed on the ground, unable to resist. Super Sure Kill Technique. Lin Baichuan clenched his fists tightly as he said each word slowly. The black and white Tai Chi pattern did not just shock him. A super sure kill technique, it was only a super sure kill technique, performed by a magical beast, and it looked like the magical beast had only used a small amount of its power. No wonder this young man was called a tyrant and was so respected. Anyone else with such a powerful magical beast that was no lower than a rank 10 magical beast would also attract attention. Naturally, Lin Baichuan was not the only one who was shocked. Chen Xiaofeng was even more dumbfounded at this time. He began to regret in his heart. He regretted his previous attitude towards Ji Dong. He followed Si Xian back alone and broke into the palace alone. It was not because of arrogance, but because of self-confidence. It seemed that he had to re-evaluate the strength of this young man. The cyan bird struggled to control its body in the air, but it didn't dare to move. Lin Luan desperately injected her demonic energy into the cyan bird's body to keep it floating in the air. The cyan bird's right wing, which had collided with the sacred evolution fire dragon, was now comminuted. This was because it was covered by the ghost silk vine. Otherwise, not only would the cyan bird's life be taken away, but Lin Luan would also suffer. This kind of ordinary level 9 wood element demon beast, how could the sacred evolution fire dragon care about it? In Eastwood City, the commoners were all looking up at the sky. The immense pressure was so great that they did not even dare to breathe. Even though the black and white halo was high up in the sky, every single one of them could clearly feel the destructive power contained in the black and white halo. Without a doubt, what the sacred evolution fire dragon had just used was the sure kill technique that it had learned from Ji Dong. Sun and moon yin-yang boundary. Maotai and Wuliangye each spat out brilliant sun all and Yuyan ice, condensing into a sure kill technique in the air. With the continuous increase in strength of Ji Dong and the sacred evolution fire dragon, their dual attribute ability was gradually displayed. The power of their yin and yang dual attribute combination skill made them far superior to the same level. Moreover, the sacred evolution fire dragon swept its tail like a heavy hammer. If the sure kill technique really hit, Lin Luan and the cyan bird would have to say goodbye. Chapter 469. As Lin Baichuan roared, a crack appeared in the sky 10 meters in front of him, and a huge green figure flashed out. In the blink of an eye, it appeared out of thin air. With a loud bang, it landed in front of Lin Baichuan. It was a huge green dragon. This was not the Emerald Lizard Dragon King that Ji Dong had seen Chen Longao ride before, but a real dragon, a member of the Green Dragon clan. Because the Green Dragon King was one of the heavenly stem mythological beasts, the Green Dragon clan's status rose with it. As long as the Green Dragon was of the Yang attribute, it would be superior to the Diamond Dragon clan. Lin Baichuan was able to have a Green Dragon as his mount because of his status as the head of the Lin clan. Lin Baichuan soared up and landed on the Azure Dragon's neck. His aura instantly increased as the level 88 First Wood Sun crown appeared above his head. The Azure Dragon was connected to his mind. It soared into the sky and arrived in the blink of an eye. Rays of azure light were emitted from Lin Baichuan's hands and fell on the Azure Bird, helping his wife stabilize the Azure Bird's injuries. The healing ability of the Yin and Yang Wood attribute magic was fully exerted, allowing the Azure Bird to slowly descend to the ground. However, Lin Baichuan and Lin Luan could both feel that the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon's tail hammer had already injured the Azure Bird's foundation. Not only were the wings crushed and fractured, even the internal organs had many traces of rupture. It would not be a matter of a day and night to completely cure it, and it was even possible that it could not be cured. Lin Baichuan looked at Ji Dong standing in the arena with a complicated expression. At this time, the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon had returned to Ji Dong's side. Its huge body hovered behind Ji Dong. Its 9 claws landed on the ground, and its black and white dragon heads were raised high. With it in the background, Ji Dong did not look so lonely. "Thank you for showing mercy once again. However, this battle between us must continue," said Jiang Qin with a smile. As he said this, Lin Baichuan's face revealed a tinge of shame. He had no choice but to join forces with his wife to deal with Ji Dong. If they did not fight in front of the Dongmu Empire's royal family and did not regain their dignity, how could the Lin family establish themselves in the Dongmu Empire in the future? This was no longer a simple matter. It was because of the marriage between Chen Xishuan and Lin Qianyu, and it involved his entire clan. Therefore, even if he knew he shouldn't do it, he had no choice but to make such a decision. When Lin Baichuan and Hyoheim spoke, the Azure Dragon beneath them naturally saw the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon. Maotai's big white head stared at the Azure Dragon that was slowly descending from the sky. Seeing the Azure Dragon looking at it, Maotai let out a low roar, and a special aura had already spread out from its body. The Azure Dragon's body trembled. Its cultivation was still at the 9th level, and it could not speak, but in the next moment, it suddenly accelerated and landed on the ground in the blink of an eye. Its huge body shook, and Lin Baichuan, who was on its back, bounced up and let out a deep dragon roar. The sudden change shocked Lin Baichuan, and he said, "Brother Dragon, you roar." The Azure Dragon let out another low roar. The others did not understand what the Azure Dragon was saying, but Lin Baichuan, who had a contract with it, naturally understood what the Azure Dragon was saying. He immediately lost his voice and said, "Brother Dragon, what did you say? This is the royal family of the Dragon clan, you can't make an enemy out of them?" The Azure Dragon nodded apologetically at Lin Baichuan, then turned around and nodded respectfully at the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon. With a sudden burst of power from its hind legs, it spread its wings and soared into the sky, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Lin Baichuan had painstakingly sacrificed his pride to raise a sliver of fighting spirit, but with the departure of the Azure Dragon, his face was completely drained of blood. The Azure Bird was heavily injured, and the Azure Dragon had left. Could they really defeat the young man in front of them with just the two of them? At this moment, he no longer had any confidence in himself, and the way he looked at Ji Dong also began to become confused. "Senior, do you still want to fight?" Ji Dong asked calmly. If it had been his usual temperament, he would not have let the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon attack at this moment. He would have fought against the two of them alone. However, the situation was different. He had helped Chen Xishuan to break off the engagement, which was not in the right. He naturally hoped that the battle would end here and not continue. Otherwise, it would not benefit anyone if it continued. This was also the reason why he had not been ruthless. The azure bird had already landed, and Lin Luan leapt to her husband's side. She looked at Lin Baichuan with concern. She had not seen her husband's face so drained of blood for a long time. She knew that her husband's heart was in great torment. Baichuan, Lin Luan was about to say something when Lin Baichuan interrupted her. Sister Luan, are you afraid of death? Lin Baichuan stared at his wife, his eyes filled with deep emotions. Lin Luan was slightly stunned, but she quickly shook her head and said, "If I can die with you, I'm not afraid." Lin Baichuan laughed. "All right, I, Lin Baichuan, have a wife like this in my life. What more can I ask for? If I, the head of the family, cannot protect the honor of the family, then I will die fighting for the family on this battlefield. Apart from that, there is no other way out. Let's join forces and fight against this tyrant." Looking at Lin Baichuan, Ji Dong could not help but frown. How could he not see that Lin Baichuan had already decided to die? An opponent like this would undoubtedly be able to unleash his full strength, but Ji Dong did not want to kill them. Lin Luan raised her hand and held her husband's. The couple looked at each other and calmed down. They smiled at each other, as if the current situation was no longer important to them. Being able to be together was more important than anything else. "Dad. Mom." Lin Xinyu came out from the side and came to his parents' side. He had mixed feelings and said, "I'm sorry, Dad, Mom. It's all because of me that the family is in such a difficult situation. Let your son fight together with you. Even if we die, we can die together." Lin Baichuan laughed and patted his son's shoulder. "Good, you are indeed my son. Let's fight together." While talking, the family of three had already walked towards Jidong. Chen Xiaofeng, who was watching the battle from the back, did not stop them. Instead, he had a strange expression on his face. The way the three of them looked at death, as if they were going to go home, was very touching. However, Lin Baichuan was only one person. This was not a fair battle. The reason why Lin Baichuan and his wife could still fight without any shame could only mean one thing. They had already regarded Ji Dong as an opponent who was much stronger than them. What did it mean to be stronger than them? It meant to be a supreme being. This young man was only in his 20s. Did he really have the same strength as a supreme being? At this moment, a thunderous voice suddenly came from the sky. "Enough! Haven't you embarrassed yourselves enough?" This voice seemed to come from all directions. As it sounded, the entire Eastern Wood Imperial Palace seemed to tremble. In the distance, a green light fell from the sky and landed right in front of Lin Baichuan and his wife. Then, another dark green light fell beside the green light. Ji Dong's calm eyes suddenly became serious. He was no longer as relaxed as before. When these two figures appeared, Ji Dong was not the only one who felt nervous. Lin Baichuan and his family suddenly knelt on the ground. Lin Baichuan's voice even trembled as he said, "Grandpa." After the green light fell, a person appeared. This person was more than 2 meters tall. His limbs were thick and slender. His long green hair looked like a bird's nest. At this moment, he was facing Ji Dong. He did not even look at Lin Baichuan, who was behind him. He said, "I don't have such a shameful grandson like you. Take your wife and son and get out of here. From now on, you are no longer the master of the Lin family." "Yes, Grandpa." Lin Baichuan did not even dare to explain. He held Lin Luan and Lin Xinyu with both hands and quickly retreated to the side. Standing beside the green-haired old man was an old woman. Her long, dark green hair was much neater. If one were to look at her from behind, no one would be able to tell her age. Unfortunately, time waited for no man. The wrinkles on her face were the marks left behind by them. These are the two ancestors of the Lin family, Lin Yilei and Lin Qing. They are also the pillars of the Dongmu Empire. Chen Xiaofeng greets the two majesties. While Chen Sichuan was explaining to Ji Dong, Chen Xiaofeng had already walked up with his subordinates and respectfully saluted Lin Yilei and his wife. "Your Majesty, I don't deserve such a big bow. I've heard everything. The marriage between Si Xian and Qian Yu is over. Our Lin family will never force them. Lin Yilei's words were very direct. He did not leave any room for negotiation. Your Majesty, you. Chen Xiaofeng was very anxious. He wanted to say something but was stopped by Lin Yilei, who raised his hand and said, Your Majesty, you don't have to say anything. Let me finish this first. While saying that, his sharp eyes had already turned to Ji Dong. His eyes were like two sharp swords that wanted to pierce through Ji Dong. Boy, you are the first to steal my Lin family's daughter-in-law. Lin Yilei said coldly. Ji Dong said indifferently, Emotions can't be forced. If Senior doesn't understand this point, this Junior can teach you. He didn't have a good impression of this Supreme Being expert in front of him who was obviously speaking ill of him. Boy, you are very arrogant. You dare to provoke this old man. Good, very good. Today, even if the Yinyang siblings and Ji Zhangxin couple were here, they would not be able to save you. Lin Yilei's voice became colder and colder. The light around his body was constantly twisting, making people unable to see his original appearance. No matter what was said, although Lin Baichuan and his wife were extremely dissatisfied with Ji Dong, at least they did not speak ill of him. Ji Dong felt guilty in his heart, which was why he had tolerated them again and again. Facing Lin Yilei's angry rebuke, Ji Dong actually calmed down. He would rather face such an opponent. No matter how strong the opponent was, at least he could fight with all his strength. Ji Dong said coldly, Are you not afraid of the wind cutting your tongue? If my grandmaster and great-grandmaster were here, would you still dare to say such words? If you hit the young, the old would come out. If you hit the old, an even older one would come out. May I ask, do you have a father or a grandfather? If you do, then call them all out. Taking turns to fight is no different from ganging up. It seems that bullying the weak is the tradition of your Lin family. Hearing Ji Dong's words, Lin Yilei could not help but fly into a rage. He took a step forward, and the entire martial arts arena shook violently. His entire body had already charged towards Ji Dong like a bolt of lightning. This old man will bully the weak. I'll first kill you, a vile spawn who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. As soon as the two words vile spawn came out, Ji Dong's expression finally changed. A layer of frost had already enveloped him, and a thick killing intent was released without reservation. In this life, the body that he had inherited was originally an illegitimate child. Lin Yilei's insult immediately made Ji Dong's anger rise up. His eyes suddenly opened wide, and a dazzling silver light shot out from his eyes. Facing a nine-crowned devil, who also had extreme demonic power, the element suppression would not have any effect, but Ji Dong still had the spiritual suppression that was not inferior to that of a martial saint. In fact, Lin Yilei and Lin Qing had already heard the noise, but with their status, they naturally would not come out so easily. Later, when they arrived at the martial arts arena, Lin Yilei and Lin Qing clearly felt the changes there, so they rushed over in shock and anger. In fact, Lin Yilei was not as irritable as he appeared to be. He did it on purpose. Just like what Ji Dong had said, it was obviously extremely humiliating for him to embarrass a junior with his status. He pretended to be angry, so that he could have an impulsive explanation later. Therefore, when he heard Ji Dong's sarcasm, he did not dare to give Ji Dong any time to speak, and directly launched an attack. The Lin family had suffered such a great humiliation in the imperial palace, and even the family head was almost forced to death. Even if he had offended the four supreme masters, he could not care less now. If he did not kill Ji Dong, the Lin family would not have a place in the Dongmu Empire in the future. Lin Qinyu could not marry Chen Sichuan, but he would never let Ji Dong marry her. Therefore, Lin Yilei's heart was already full of killing intent. Since he appeared, he had already decided to kill Ji Dong at all costs. The sudden spiritual suppression caused Lin Yilei to be in a trance for a moment, but he was a supreme master after all, so he immediately reacted and completely concentrated his spiritual power. Although it was not enough to attack, the self-defense of his soul was able to reduce the effect of Ji Dong's spiritual suppression to the minimum. What a strong spiritual power! Lin Yilei was secretly shocked. The suppression of spiritual power not only affected the opponent's fighting spirit, but at the same time, it could also detect the opponent's movements. At this moment, Lin Yilei had a feeling that he was completely seen through. A dazzling white light condensed above Lin Yilei's head. What made Ji Dong alarmed was that Lin Yilei's yin-yang corona was also at level 96, which was the same as Fatty Zhou Xiaoxiao. This was enough to make Ji Dong vigilant. Chapter 470. Suddenly, Ji Dong sensed something, and his body retreated like lightning. At the same time, a huge green light had risen from the position he had occupied before, like a giant wood flying into the air. The giant wood that was condensed by the green light did not stop there. It directly swallowed the air, rolled, and exploded in an instant, turning into thousands of green threads that shot towards Ji Dong. Subduing by force? These words suddenly sounded in Ji Dong's heart. The opponent was clearly using the difference in magic power to suppress him. It should be known that Lin Yilei was also using the ultimate magic power, the ultimate first wood. In the case of both sides having the same ultimate magic power, the opponent's magic power was more than 10 levels higher than his. One could imagine the pressure Ji Dong's body was under. Lin Yilei had lived for hundreds of years, and his combat experience was extremely rich. At a glance, he could see the strengths and weaknesses of Ji Dong's strength. There was no doubt that Ji Dong's dual attribute ultimate magic power was his biggest advantage. Although he had not released the yin-yang crown, Lin Yilei could fully understand that Ji Dong's cultivation could not reach the level of 9 crowns. At the same time, when Lin Yilei made his move, Ji Dong did not respond. The long roars of Mao Tai and Wu Yangye sounded at the same time. The next moment, their huge bodies had already blocked in front of Ji Dong. Strong black and white light burst from their bodies, and the yin and yang fire in the 5 elements formation appeared simultaneously. Although Lin Yilei's attack was fast, when his attack was about to touch the sacred evolution fire dragon, the black and white light had already formed. The 2 colors of light intertwined in the air, and all the fire elements between heaven and earth suddenly became restless. In front of the sacred evolution fire dragon, there seemed to be a huge whirlpool. The ultimate first wood magic power that was like silk, and silk entered it and was immediately strangled. None of it could really fall on the body of the sacred evolution fire dragon. Infernal domain. Several low voices sounded at the same time. Yes, what the sacred evolution fire dragon displayed was its Tai Chi infernal domain. Lin Yilei didn't seem to care that his demonic power was being melted. While he was in the air, his palms had already been stacked together. It was the Lin clan's 1,000 Leaves palm that Lin Qianyu wanted to perform but didn't manage to. The same demonic skill would have completely different effects when executed by different people. Lin Yilei's 1,000 Leaf palm was completed in the blink of an eye. In front of him, there really seemed to be thousands of leaves stacked on top of each other, forming a leaf that was about half a meter long. The jade-like leaf floated into the air and flew toward the sacred flame dragon effortlessly. Although Ji Dong was standing behind the sacred flame dragon, his mental strength was so strong that he could clearly see everything that was happening on the battlefield. When Lin Yilei's 1,000 Leaf palm was unleashed, his expression changed. Even with his mental strength, he couldn't catch the trajectory of the 1,000 Leaf palm. It seemed to have no pattern to it. It just floated in the air and appeared in front of the Mao Tai and Wu Yangye in the blink of an eye. It was unknown where it would land. Transmigrate. Ji Dong's voice rang out in the hearts of Mao Tai and Wu Yangye. Although they didn't understand why Ji Dong would ask them to do this, they still did as they were told. This was because they had absolute trust in Ji Dong. Ji Dong's voice echoed in Mao Tai and Wu Yangye's hearts. In a flash, the sacred flame dragon disappeared into thin air. When it reappeared, it was already behind Lin Yilei. Its huge body moved instantly, and the sacred flame dragon swung its tail at Lin Yilei's waist again. The sacred evolution fire dragon's attack was so sudden and fierce that Lin Yilei could no longer control his thousand-leaf palm. His figure flashed, but he didn't release any mana. Instead, he pressed his hands down on the sacred evolution fire dragon's tail that was attacking him. The leaf that had been unleashed by the thousand-leaf palm was the first to change. Without Lin Yilei's control, it fell to the ground. Suddenly, a low rumble sounded. The people in the distance didn't feel anything, but Ji Dong, who was nearby, gasped. There wasn't a loud sound, but a pitch-black pit had appeared on the ground where the leaf had landed. The appearance of the pit was exactly the same as the energy of the leaf, but it was bottomless. Ji Dong's spiritual power immediately probed inside, and he was shocked to find that the depth was more than 300 meters. Such concentrated demonic power, such a terrifying attack. This was the true power of the thousand-leaf palm. Ji Dong knew that if he had allowed the thousand-leaf palm to land on the sacred flame dragon's body, he wouldn't have been able to escape unscathed despite the Maotai and Wu Yangye's astonishing defense. The attack of the thousand-leaf palm was similar to his deity destroyer strike, but his deity destroyer strike injected demonic power into the opponent's body after hitting the target, while the thousand-leaf palm was released after stacking and condensing demonic power outside the body. The demonic power of this small leaf was already equivalent to the power of a sure-kill technique. Everything that Ji Dong sensed was transmitted to the sacred flame dragon's mind, and he warned it to be careful. A supreme being at level 96 was indeed not easy to deal with. At that moment, Lin Yilei's palms were already pressed against the sacred evolution fire dragon's hammer tail. A strange scene appeared. As the sacred evolution fire dragon's tail lashed out, Lin Yilei's body seemed to be weightless. He floated through the air like a leaf, drifting away in the same direction as the thousand-leaf palms he had used earlier. However, Ji Dong could clearly feel that he was the one Lin Yilei was aiming for. He was actually borrowing strength from the sacred flame dragon's tail hammer. This supreme being of the first wood element, Lin Yilei had already assimilated his body with the first wood element to perfection. How could such a person be so hot-tempered? At this moment, Ji Dong understood a lot about Lin Yilei's behavior. Lin Yilei's body floated in the air, borrowing the power of the sacred evolution fire dragon's tail to suddenly accelerate, drawing a beautiful arc in the air. A resonant dragon's roar rang out from his body, and Ji Dong vaguely saw an azure dragon flying towards him. That dragon's roar wasn't coming from Lin Yilei's mouth, but from the resonance of his mana with the air when he released it. Lin Yilei's whole body was in the air, and his hands had already completed the stacking action in front of him. The most powerful part of his thousand-leaf palm was not its attacking power, but it was similar to what the sacred flame dragon had demonstrated when it used the sun, moon, yin and yang world. It used the least amount of mana to achieve the greatest effect. His thousand-leaf palm was only equivalent to a standard technique, so how much mana would it consume even if he used 1,000 palms? But when the 1,000 palms were stacked and compressed, the power produced was enough to reach the level of a sure-kill technique. With Lin Qianyu's cultivation, he could at most stack 100 palms, but Lin Yilei could truly stack 1,000 palms. Just as he was about to fly in front of Ji Dong, Lin Yilei's thousand-leaf palm had finished stacking. This time, he did not release the mana, but stuck it on his right palm and pressed it down on Ji Dong's head. Ji Dong had the Sacred Fire King armor and the Phoenix Dance Dragon Snake transformation. Even so, if he was hit by this palm, his body would explode into pieces in an instant. An expert's skill could be seen the moment he made a move. Just from these simple changes, Ji Dong could tell that among all the supreme experts he had met, only his grandmaster Yin Zhaoyang could compare to him. Or perhaps Zhou Xiaoxiao could use a divine weapon to face him. He was indeed the pillar of the Dongmu Empire. His strength was indeed shocking. Ji Dong could not dodge. At this moment, if he took even half a step back, his momentum would be gone. When facing an opponent at the level of a supreme expert, once the opponent took the initiative, even with the sacred flame dragon's help, Lin Yilei would only have to pay the price of injuring himself if he wanted to kill Ji Dong. Therefore, Ji Dong could not retreat. He definitely could not retreat. With a boom, something seemed to explode around Ji Dong. It was as if a layer of light had exploded from within his body. His shoulders shrugged, and his entire body suddenly turned into the posture of a cheetah that was ready to pounce. Strangely, his raised hands had already turned gold and black. In the next moment, Ji Dong moved like lightning. He rushed towards Lin Yilei, choosing to face him head-on. Seeing this scene, Dongmu Emperor Chen Xiaofeng felt his heart tighten. Where did this young man with the title of tyrant come from? He was only in his 20s, but he dared to face a level 96 supreme expert head-on? Ji Dong's movements were as smooth as flowing water. It looked as if he was rushing forward with an indomitable will. Only Lin Yilei knew that he was not rushing directly towards him. When Ji Dong's body exploded, Lin Yilei had already prepared to exert his strength, but he suddenly discovered that Ji Dong, who was already in front of him, had instantly retreated half a foot. Although half a foot was not a long distance, to an expert like him, half a foot more or less, the effect of exerting force would definitely be different. Therefore, he could only pause the 1,000 leaves palm energy that he was preparing to release, and at this moment, Ji Dong rushed forward again, coincidentally at the moment when Lin Yilei had just retracted his force. The profound degree of grasping this opportunity made Lin Yilei's heart involuntarily suck in a breath of cold air. What kind of combat experience was required to be able to play such a trick in the face of his sure-kill attack? Lin Yilei was very depressed. Even if it was another supreme expert, it would be impossible for him to do what Ji Dong had just done in front of him. The reason why Ji Dong could control Lin Yilei's momentum at will and use his speed to maximize his attack was because his spiritual power was far above Lin Yilei's. Therefore, Lin Yilei was unable to lock onto him, but he could clearly grasp the magic power conversion between the attack and defense of Lin Yilei. Ji Dong used his left hand, a left hand that was as black as ink. When his left hand collided with Lin Yilei's right palm, something unexpected happened. There was no violent explosion. The moment the two palms collided, there was actually a violent friction sound. That's right, friction. Lin Yilei's 1,000-leaf palm was a combination technique of 1,000 palms in one, and what Ji Dong used was the Dark Flame Devil King's sure-kill technique, Dark Kiss of Annihilation. In terms of level, Dark Kiss of Annihilation was definitely inferior to the 1,000-leaf palm. The 1,000-leaf palm was 1,000 palms superimposed, while Dark Kiss of Annihilation was 1,000 dark moon claws, which produced a continuous superimposed effect on the opponent's body. However, using Dark Kiss of Annihilation to deal with the 1,000-leaf palm was an excellent choice. Ji Dong relied on his superior spiritual power to control his opponent's movements and seized the initiative by moving his body. This allowed his Dark Kiss of Annihilation to land on Lin Yilei's palm at the first moment, and it was also when Lin Yilei hadn't exerted any force. The 1,000 claw of annihilation was executed in one go. Every dark moon claw seemed to be stripping away the superimposed power of the 1,000-leaf palm. When the 1,000 claws flashed past, Lin Yilei was shocked to discover that the mana accumulated in his 1,000-leaf palm had actually been reduced by half. However, at this time, the power of his palm had completely burst out. With the support of the 1,000-leaf palm's huge magic fusion, the stiffening effect of Dark Kiss of Annihilation couldn't be used at all, and the palm was about to land. And at this time, Ji Dong's right hand moved. His left hand was a claw, and his right was a fist. What he used was the Flame Monarch's sure-kill technique, Monarch's Devour, that was used to counter the Dark Flame Devil King's Dark Kiss of Annihilation. 1,000 sunburn devours superimposed together was the Monarch's Devour. This time, it was a true magnetic bombardment. What the spectators could see from afar was a glaring golden light and a glaring emerald light exploding at the same time. Terrifying mana fluctuations surged into the sky, and in the next moment, Ji-dong's body was sent flying from the collision of the light. He landed a few dozen meters away, and only managed to stabilize himself after taking a few steps back. However, Lin Yilei's palm was still blocked in the end. Lin Yilei's feet were firmly on the ground, and his gaze towards Ji-dong became even more murderous. At this moment, the sacred evolution fire dragon had already retracted its wings and descended from the sky, landing beside Ji-dong. Lin Yilei was extremely shocked. He had already tested that Ji-dong's mana was far inferior to his, but he was still able to block his attack when he used the thousand-leaf palm. In terms of control of mana, especially the application of dual attribute mana, Lin Yilei was actually helpless. Although he had forced Ji-dong back with his palm, he hadn't really hurt Ji-dong. Moreover, Ji-dong's attack had forced Lin Yilei to divert his attention to dispel the dual attribute mana, so he couldn't chase after him. Although it couldn't be said that Ji-dong already had the ability to challenge a supreme being, he wasn't far from it. If Lin Yilei didn't kill him today, it would be even more difficult to deal with him the next time they met. Chapter 471. How could Ji-dong not know about Lin Yilei's killing intent? The clash just now had given him a deeper understanding of this great sage. The dark red Godfire Saint armor appeared and covered Ji-dong's body. When the sinister mask covered his face, an unparalleled aura of slaughter was released from his body without restraint. This was the killing intent that belonged to the god of slaughter, Shupnus. The god of slaughter's body in the fire god's sword would affect Ji-dong's usage, but Ji-dong could also borrow some of his abilities. Ji-dong's aura rose terrifyingly. Even the sacred evolution fire dragon sensed the change in his aura and roared at the sky. Chen Sichuan watched the battle nervously. When Ji-dong's killing intent erupted without restraint, she understood that Ji-dong had become serious. This was likely to be a battle to the death. She knew that her judgment before returning was completely wrong. The Lin family had done this for the sake of face and other reasons. Not only had Lin Baichuan made a move, even a chosen like Lin Yilei had disregarded his face and attacked Hyoheim. It would be very difficult for today's matter to end peacefully. However, Chen Sichuan wasn't too worried. She had absolute confidence in Ji-dong. Furthermore, she was here. With their combined strength, they would be able to escape unscathed even if they were to face the two honorable state experts in front of them. The change in Ji-dong's temperament also caused Lin Yilei's gaze to turn serious. Two sharp gazes met Ji-dong's dense killing intent. At the same time, Lin Yilei took a step forward, and a dense magical ripple burst forth. A layer of black air current swept out from his body. It was a black light mixed with an azure light. When this light appeared on the field, the pressure immediately became even more intense. The azure-black light floated in the air like a dense fog. Ji-dong was shocked to find that the soul force he had sent out to sense the changes in the surroundings had been forced back into his body. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation. Even when he faced the Dragon Emperor and the Earth Dragon Ancestor, their soul force surpassed his, but they were unable to force his soul force back into his body. Furthermore, from the previous battle, he could tell that Lin Yilei's soul cultivation was inferior to his. Why was this happening? Devil Domain. These two words flashed across Ji-dong's mind. At the same time, he became more vigilant. Not only was his soul suppressed, but everything around him was no longer clear, as if the whole world had fallen into darkness. Lin Yilei said coldly, "You didn't expect this, did you? Is your soul force useless? It doesn't matter if I tell you. This is my devil domain, a spiritual devil domain called soul-suppressing. It's your honor to die in my soul-suppressing devil domain. In my soul-suppressing devil domain, no matter who it is, even if it's a saint-level expert, they will be affected. all their reactions will become sluggish, and their spiritual power will not be able to detect anything around them. It's as if they have lost their six senses. You can hear my voice now, but I deliberately let you hear it. You can't feel my location, and your six senses have been sealed. In the devil domain of the supreme level, my soul-suppressing devil domain is one of the strongest. You should be proud to be able to force me to use my devil domain. Lin Yilei's words were not exaggerated. Ji Dong had already understood that his devil domain on the spiritual level was completely different from those devil domains that mainly use demonic power to activate the power of heaven and earth. This soul-suppressing devil domain itself had no attack power, but its function was to shield people's six senses. Without the six senses, how could he compete with the opponent? Unless he could immediately break through this devil domain, he would only be at the mercy of others. However, at the same time, Ji Dong also judged that the soul-suppressing devil domain was indeed astonishing, but in order to use such a powerful devil domain, Lin Yilei would definitely have to pay a certain price. Otherwise, he would not have wasted time talking to him, and would have killed him long ago. What should I do? Ji Dong's confidence was finally shaken. He was not afraid of a head-on confrontation, but this kind of situation where he could only be at the mercy of his opponent after losing all his senses was not something he could grasp. With Lin Yilei's cultivation, as long as he maintained the devil domain and launched an attack, his thousand-leaf palm would be enough to injure him and the sacred evolution fire dragon. At this moment, an extremely familiar and somewhat anxious aura suddenly invaded Ji Dong's heart. Before he could react, the darkness in front of him suddenly lit up, and what he saw was a red light. Ji Dong did not think that this red light was coming to attack him, because this red light seemed to be released from his own body. Seeing it, Ji Dong could not help but be greatly surprised. From his own feelings and Lin Yilei's words just now, he understood that in this soul-sealing demon domain, all colors and light were completely blocked. Why would a red light suddenly rise up? And the place where the red light rose up seemed to be from his right wrist. Before Ji Dong could think too much about it, the rising red light had already quickly condensed into a red eye. It was a beautiful, large eye that was bright and full of expression. Even though it was completely condensed from light, it still looked so lifelike. A miraculous scene appeared. A red light shot out from the red eye, spreading in front of him in the shape of a fan. Following that, the familiar feeling from before merged with Ji Dong, and all the senses he had lost were completely restored when he was within the range of the red light. The huge red eye floated up and landed behind Ji Dong, as if it had become his background. In the next moment, tens of thousands of red lights shot out, completely illuminating the dark world of the soul-sealing demon domain. No, this is impossible. At a glance, Ji Dong saw Lin Yilei, who was standing there and constantly releasing the infernal domain with his hands. This cry of shock also came from his mouth. Ji Dong ignored him. Instead, he lowered his head and looked at the vermilion bird bracelet on his right wrist that was shining elegantly. He called out emotionally, "Horror, is that you?" As Ji Dong called out, a loud phoenix cry rang out. Following that, a fiery red figure shot up from the vermilion bird bracelet on Ji Dong's wrist. The red eye that had been behind Ji Dong also rose up, floating behind it and rising along with it. There was a shattering sound, and all the darkness shattered in the next moment, turning into greenish-black air currents that dissipated into the air. Everything returned to normal, but there was now a strange large bird in the sky. This bird was about 5 meters long, but its wingspan was 10 meters. The most amazing part was the dazzling tail feathers on its back that were more than 15 meters long. It had the head of a chicken, the neck of a swallow, the claws of an eagle, the tail of a fish, the back of a turtle, and the feathers of a peacock. Its feathers were black and gold. The feathers on its back, head, and tail were all gold, while the feathers on its abdomen, the bottom of its wings, and its claws were all black. Yes, it was her, the eclipse phoenix. Hor had been in a deep slumber in the vermilion bird bracelet for a very long time. The main reason for its slumber was the appearance of the sacred evolution fire dragon. The sacred evolution fire dragon's strength had aroused Hor-Er's arrogance. Hence, Hor did not appear easily and had been bitterly cultivating in seclusion in the vermilion bird bracelet. Ji-dong's connection with Hor was no less than that of the sacred evolution fire dragon. As Ji-dong's strength increased, so did Hor-Er's cultivation. At this moment, Ji-dong saw that Hor-Er's body had already become so huge and beautiful that he almost couldn't recognize it. Judging from its magical aura, Hor had also risen to the 9th rank. If its mother was the fire phoenix, then Hor was the yin-yang twin fire phoenix. When it flew out of the vermilion bird bracelet this time, it seemed to have been reborn. Even the sacred evolution fire dragon could not conceal its brilliance. Loud and clear phoenix cries continuously rang out from its mouth. The sacred evolution fire dragon standing behind Ji-dong didn't want to be outdone. It suddenly stomped on the ground with its 9 powerful claws and soared into the sky. It circled around the eclipse phoenix and Hor, creating a magnificent scene of a dragon and phoenix crying in harmony. The huge red eye gradually disappeared from Hor-Er's back. Hor-Er's arrogant eyes looked down at Lin-Yilei with a hint of disdain. Ji-dong's confusion and hesitation woke Hor from its slumber. The eye formed by the red light was one of Hor-Er's innate skills, Eyes of the Phoenix. The Eyes of the Phoenix, also known as the Eye of Truth, was a unique innate skill of the vermilion bird's bloodline. It could break through all illusionary spiritual attacks and see through all camouflage. If Lin-Yilei's soul-suppressing demon territory was the nemesis of Ji-dong's saint-rank soul, then Hor-Er's Eye of the Phoenix was undoubtedly the nemesis of Lin-Yilei's soul-suppressing demon territory. This proved the saying that all things in the world reinforce and subdue each other. Lin-Yilei was also a little stunned. He only came back to his senses after a long while. The way he looked at Ji-dong changed a little. He said, "Two contracted magical beasts of the same attribute?" When the sacred evolution fire dragon appeared, no one doubted that it was not Ji-dong's contracted magical beast. Not to mention the tacit cooperation between the man and the 2 dragons, their identical attributes were enough to prove their relationship. People with dual fire attributes were rare, and so were magical beasts with dual fire attribute. Given Ji-dong's special attributes, Lin-Yilei was most afraid that he could find a magical beast of the same attribute as his partner. God knows what kind of power they would have when they grew to a higher level. Therefore, he decided to kill the man and the dragon, making sure that they would not be able to live here. However, at this moment, another magical beast had appeared on Ji-dong's body. Furthermore, its cultivation was not inferior to that of the 2-headed dragon from before. It even had the Eyes of Truth that could break through his soul-suppressing demon territory. It was a phoenix, a mutated phoenix. Heavens, it was another magical beast of the same attribute as him. The whole place was silent. Everyone was in disbelief as they looked at the dragon and phoenix circling in the sky. Until now, Ji-dong had not released his yin-yang crown even when he was facing Lin-Yilei. However, he had blocked Lin-Yilei's attack, and he even had the cooperation of 2 powerful magical beast companions. The expression in Lin-Yilei's eyes gradually changed. When he had first fought with Ji-dong, he had not regarded Ji-dong as an opponent on the same level as him. He had only wanted to finish off this young man in the shortest time possible so that he could save his family's face. However, after the appearance of the Eclipse Phoenix, Lin-Yilei understood that the young man in front of him was already an opponent on the same level as him. Hor-Er's Eyes of the Phoenix had completely restrained Lin-Yilei's soul-suppressing demon territory, causing his own strength to be significantly weakened. The soul-suppressing demon territory was an extremely powerful demon territory. In the circle of sovereign powerhouses, no one was willing to go up against Lin-Yilei's demon territory. They were also well aware of how powerful it was. However, this spiritual-type demon territory also had its shortcomings. Firstly, it required a large amount of Lin Yilei's soul-suppressing demon territory to release. It was much more exhausting than an ordinary demon master's demon territory. Secondly, once the soul-suppressing demon territory met its nemesis, it would not be able to display any of its power. Lin Yilei took a deep breath and waved his hands in the air. He shouted in a low voice, "Gates of hell that protect my life, open." In an instant, the greenish-black color that had appeared when he released the soul-suppressing demon territory was released from his body once again. However, this time, it was not released in the form of demon force. Instead, his body was completely dyed greenish-black. A huge pattern with a diameter of 10 meters appeared in front of Lin Yilei. The pattern looked very strange. There were countless symbols of formations on it. Looking at this huge formation, Ji Dong could even find some traces of a 5 elements formation. Moreover, the demon force released from this formation was extremely strange. It was so strange that he could not distinguish it. In the next moment, the ground suddenly trembled. The entire eastern wood city trembled slightly. The black formation with a diameter of 10 meters fluctuated violently, and a small sapling drilled out from the center. The sapling was completely black. As soon as it broke out of the ground, it immediately grew rapidly. Almost in the blink of an eye, it had become a towering tree that was 30 meters tall. This giant tree was completely black. Only the leaves were green. However, the veins on the leaves were also black. Strong demon force, mixed with incredible fear, quickly spread out. This strange giant tree also had a special characteristic, and that was that all of its branches were especially slender. They hung down from the towering giant tree to the ground, and even spread out from the ground to the surroundings. Chapter 472. What is this? Ji Dong's gaze was somewhat sluggish. He could even feel a shiver from the souls of the Maotai, Wuliangye, and Hui. Could it be that even with their cultivation, they still had to be wary of this strange tree? Ji Dong suddenly understood that what Lin Yilei said just now was not completely boasting. If this giant tree had the power to make the sacred evolution fire dragon and the eclipse phoenix wary, then coupled with his soul-suppressing demon territory, he indeed had the ability to defeat any supreme martial artist that Ji Dong knew. At the same time, he also understood that what he was going to face today was probably the most difficult challenge he had ever faced. Lin Yilei took a step forward and soared into the sky. His entire body had already floated to the top of the giant black tree. An exceptionally thick branch quietly appeared under his feet and lifted his body up. Seeing this scene, Ji Dong suddenly understood and said in shock, "This is your magical beast? Plant-type magical beast?" Lin Yilei said indifferently, "In a sense, you are right. This is my partner, a plant-type magical beast from hell, the hell demonic tree. Even my soul-suppressing domain was activated by it. Not only is it level 10, but it is also a dual-element level 10 of wood and darkness. It also carries the dark aura of a level 10 hell. It should not be wrong for me to call it the most powerful magical beast in the world. Unfortunately, my power is still not enough for it to fully mature. Otherwise, it would have long broken through to the Saint Realm. Kid, I admit that you are very strong. I don't need to hide anything now. Today, I don't intend to let you have another chance to leave this place, including your 2 magical beasts." Ji Dong looked at Lin Yilei and his gaze gradually froze. He said, "The hell demonic tree is indeed a magical beast. This is also the first plant-type magical beast I have seen. Your Highness, you are indeed the most powerful supreme martial artist I have ever seen. However, if you want to kill me, you must pay a sufficient price." The situation on the battlefield was changing, but at this stage, even Emperor Chen Xiaofeng did not dare to speak up to stop it. Even for him, this was the first time he had seen Lin Yilei use the hell demonic tree. That terrifying aura made him not even think of approaching. The few members of the Lin family stood respectfully at a distance. Only Lin Yilei's wife, Her Highness Tai Chong Lin Qing, was still standing near the battle circle. From the beginning to the end, her gaze had only changed slightly when Little Flame appeared. Other than that, she had always been indifferent and calm, as if the person in the battle was not her husband. With the divine fire Saint King armor on his body, the Phoenix Dance Dragon Snake transformation was unleashed. Ji Dong's wings slowly spread open, and the images of the two sovereigns gradually appeared behind him as he released his magic. One black and one white, two streams of air gathered above his head. At this moment, he no longer held back. Ji Dong's yin-yang crown finally appeared in front of the Tumu Empire's experts for the first time. 1 crown, 2 crowns, 3 crowns, 7 crowns, 8 crowns? Although the majority of the people had already guessed Ji Dong's strength, when they saw the 8 crowns above his head, everyone's heart was filled with intense shock. This young man was only in his 20s, but he had already reached the level of 8 crowns. Furthermore, he possessed the extreme dual fire attribute. If he was given another 20 or 30 years, to what extent would he grow to? No one knew, and no one could answer this question. Chen Xiaofeng now understood why Lin Yilei would disregard his status and make a move. He wanted to kill this young man in the cradle, so as not to affect the Lin family's prestige. What should he do? Could it be that in the near future he would have to bear the wrath of the Central Earth Empire and the 4 great masters? That's right, Ji Dong's cultivation had already risen to the level of 8 crowns. This was something he discovered after the thunderstorm that night. That night, although he had already guessed many things, he would rather believe Chen Sichuan's explanation. However, it was also that night that allowed him to smoothly break through the bottleneck of 7 crowns and enter the realm of 8 crowns. Ji Dong's cultivation was different from other demon masters. In the early stages of cultivation, he had endured unimaginable pain. When he really got on the right track, it was much easier for him to break through any bottleneck than other demon masters. The strength of the extreme dual fire attributes had also been increasing exponentially. Ji Dong had the confidence to face Supreme Being experts precisely because his cultivation had finally broken through to the level of 8 crowns. Breaking through to the level of 8 crowns meant many things to him. He had his own demon domain and stronger demon power. At the same time, it also gave him the ability to suppress the killing god Shupness's soul backlash for a short period of time and temporarily use the fire god's sword. Under such circumstances, Ji Dong firmly believed that his cultivation was not inferior to any Supreme Being expert. In the face of Lin Yilei's killing intent, not only did Ji Dong not cower, he was instead filled with confidence and anticipation. This battle was the first time he had truly encountered a difficult situation after entering the level of 8 crowns, just like the battle with the 3-legged golden crow. However, only such a battle could squeeze out every bit of his potential. Ji Dong yearned for even more powerful strength, because in the future, he would have to face the top-notch experts of the Darkness Continent. With his current cultivation, it was far from enough. Therefore, he yearned to become stronger, and he had to constantly challenge experts. Previously, he didn't think that he would encounter such trouble here. After knowing that his cultivation had entered the level of 8 crowns, he set his target on the Dragon Emperor. Although he still wouldn't be a match for the Dragon Emperor, he yearned to go back and see even more powerful strength from the Dragon Emperor. At the very least, he should be able to last longer. At this moment, facing Lin Yilei, whether it was Lin Yilei's Thousand Leaves Palm, soul-suppressing demon domain or the hell demonic tree in front of him, they all gave him a whole new understanding of the abilities of a demon master. Facing such an opponent would only be beneficial to the improvement of his cultivation. Not only did the hell demonic tree not lower his confidence, but Ji Dong's battle intent rose like never before. Hidden behind the mask of the divine flame Saint King armor, the light in his eyes flickered, filled with an intense desire to fight. Strong magic fluctuations lingered in his body. Ji Dong's entire person entered a state of selflessness. In his eyes, there was only his enemy. He completely released his saint-level soul force, enveloping his opponent invisibly. Even the slight rhythm of each branch of the hell demonic tree couldn't escape his detection. Teacher Ji-dong, you must be careful. This hell demonic tree probably has an extremely powerful corrosive ability. You have to use yang fire as much as possible to deal with it, because extreme yang fire carries some light aura, and fire has a certain restraining effect on wood. Chen Sichuan's voice sounded in Ji-dong's mind. Her voice was very steady, and she didn't seem anxious at all. This was because she couldn't let her emotions affect Ji-dong. At that moment, she was looking at Ji-dong confidently. Of course, she knew that Ji-dong had broken through to the 8th crown. The moment he broke through, they had climbed to the peak for the umpteenth time. It was also when Chen Sichuan was the most exhausted. If she hadn't unreservedly used her pure extreme Yi-wood magic to replenish his strength and promote the transformation of his magic, it would have been impossible for him to break through to the 8th crown. It was also because of this that after that night, he was still full of energy, while she was tired to this day and had yet to fully recover. The pitch-black branches suddenly moved, bringing with them the bluish-black leaves. They instantly exploded and swept out, like countless black shadows flying in all directions. They seemed disorderly, but they sealed off all of Ji-dong's dodging routes. Even the sacred evolution fire dragon and eclipse phoenix circling behind Ji-dong were not spared. The true length of the branches seemed to be immeasurable. When they shot out, they seemed to extend endlessly. The dense aura of darkness gave people a gloomy feeling. That wasn't mental power, but the pure darkness attribute that affected people's hearts. Intense mana fluctuations continuously fluctuated in the air. The Hell Tree launched an all-out attack right from the start. Just as the Hell Demonic Tree launched its attack, His Holiness Linile, who had been standing on the branch, disappeared. It was as though he had fused with the tree and disappeared completely. Ji-dong couldn't even find his aura. Retreat was Ji-dong's first choice. He flapped the wings on his back, and his body shot out like an arrow. The sacred evolution fire dragon and eclipse phoenix erupted at Ji-dong's reminder. The Wuliangye shut up, and Moutai went all out. Together with fire, they spat out a large amount of golden flames. The golden flames were like a surging wall, and in the blink of an eye, they had spread to every corner in front of them, sealing off the Hell Demonic Tree's path. The next moment, Ji-dong and the others saw how powerful the Hell Demonic Tree was. The temperature of the ultimate Yang fire was extremely high. However, after the Hell Demonic Tree shot the ultimate Yang fire, it only trembled slightly and continued to wrap around the sacred evolution fire dragon and eclipse phoenix's bodies. What was even stranger was that Ji-dong's retreating figure was blocked by its branches before he could retreat into the wall of ultimate Yang fire. It was like a huge net that enveloped the heavens and the earth, instantly tightening around Ji-dong's body. What shocked Ji-dong the most was that as the net tightened, Linile appeared. He appeared right in front of Ji-dong, and his palm was aimed directly at Ji-dong's chest. A dazzling green light exploded instantly. He had actually used the 1,000-leaf palm before his palm was sent out. All of this happened in the time it takes for a spark to fly off a flint. Ji-dong's mind was working at high speed, and Li Xian understood that not only was the Hell Demonic Tree extremely powerful, it also had an extremely strong amplification effect on Linile after fusing with him. This was why he was able to unleash an attack like the 1,000-leaf palm in such a short period of time. As for why he could suddenly appear in front of him, there was only one explanation. He had really fused with the Hell Demonic Tree. Only this explanation could explain why his aura could be completely concealed. At this moment, Ji-dong's body was surrounded by the branches of the Hell Demonic Tree, completely restricting all his escape routes. The rich dark aura also affected him in all aspects, bringing him all kinds of negative emotions. This Hell Demonic Tree seemed to have a high level of intelligence. Because Ji-dong possessed the ultimate dual fire, it did not release its own wood attribute. Instead, it completely used the dark attribute to affect Ji-dong. It could be said that it cooperated perfectly with Lin Yilei. Humph! A cold snort came out of Ji-dong's mouth. Immediately after, Ji-dong's body flashed in this narrow area like an illusion. The situation that left Lin Yilei helpless once before appeared again. This time, Ji-dong's flashing in this narrow area just happened to avoid the peak of his palm's aura. Although it was still impossible to dodge, at least the power of his attack would be weakened by 10% or even more. In the next instant, Ji-dong's right hand met Lin Yilei's attack head-on without any fancy moves. At this moment, what Lin Yilei saw was a red fist that was filled with blazing heat. At the same time, the wings on Ji-dong's back extended outwards. Every feather on his wings stood up, and as they flapped, a milky white halo spread out from his wings. A strange scene appeared. The branches of the hell demonic tree that approached Ji-dong's back and were touched by his wings started to burn without warning. The intense burning caused them to tremble in pain and scatter quickly, unable to touch Ji-dong's body. At this moment, Ji-dong's right fist had already collided with Lin Yilei's thousand-leaf palm. There was no loud bang, but there was a sound like a hot steel being suddenly poured with cold water. Ji-dong let out a muffled groan, and his whole body was sent flying. After all, his magic power was still much weaker than Roland's. However, Lin Yilei didn't feel good either. His face instantly turned pale, and he retracted his right hand at lightning speed. There was an additional burning red brand in his palm, and his entire arm was trembling violently. The mana in his body was completely released, and he even had to mobilize the mana of the hell demonic tree to barely resist the sudden and terrifying invasion of mana. Even so, his entire right arm had temporarily lost feeling. What kind of power is this? This kid? Lin Yilei was filled with shock. He originally thought that after he cooperated with the hell demonic tree, he would be able to get rid of Ji-dong in an instant. However, after this exchange, he realized that he was the one at a disadvantage. How was this possible? Chaos. He seemed to have used the power of chaos to block the hell demonic tree. Chapter 473. Just as Ji-dong resolved the problem, the hell demonic tree started to shake violently once again. This time, it was its massive trunk that was shaking. The sound of a dragon and phoenix resonated in the sky. The entire sky had turned into a world of black and white. It was the ultimate demonic territory. However, this time, it was not the sacred evolution fire dragon's ultimate demonic territory. Instead, it was the sacred evolution fire dragon and Hur who had released it together. The release of the ultimate demonic territory was not to restrict the opponent. Instead, it was to form an offensive skill. The terrifying yin and yang flames produced an unprecedented killing force in the ultimate demonic territory. The hell demonic tree was indeed powerful. However, when its branches entered the fused demonic territory created by the sacred evolution fire dragon and the eclipse phoenix, every single one of its tenacious branches was instantly reduced to powder. Ji-dong's body was sent flying back a few hundred meters before he managed to stabilize himself. He was in a terrible state. If not for the protection of the flying serpent power transformation technique, he would have been severely injured by the thousand-leaf palm. There was no doubt that the punch he had thrown had the effect of the fire god's sword. The penetrative power of the fire god's sword and the explosive power of the deity annihilation strike had crippled Lin Yilei's right arm. At the very least, Lin Yilei would not be able to use this arm in today's battle. Wasn't close combat what Ji-dong loved the most? Unfortunately, when he had thrown that punch, Ji-dong had used the chaotic flames to scare off the hell demonic tree's branches in order to prevent them from landing on his body. As a result, he had not been able to use his full strength on that punch. Otherwise, Merit Chow would have been even more injured. How could the deity annihilation strike, which had been cultivated to the fifth realm, be so easy to deal with? Ji-dong's eyes were filled with a torrential battle intent. His battle intent and killing intent had been completely ignited by the collision just now. An intense black and white dual-colored light rose up from his back at the same time. Following that, the two great sovereign king phantoms that appeared behind him suddenly overlap. A layer of black and white dual-colored light was released from his body without reservation. From the outside, his body could no longer be seen. The next moment, the black and white light completely fused into the Taiji demon domain of Dragon and Phoenix harmony. That's right, it was the demon domain trio. The three identical demon domains had fused together. This was also the first time Ji-dong had cast his own demon domain. It had also completely fused with the sacred evolution fire dragon and eclipse phoenix. It was as though there was only this simple black and white in the world. The roar of the dragon and phoenix grew even louder. All of the attacks that the Hell demonic tree attempted to launch were blocked outside the Tai Chi demonic domain. Even though it was a dual elemental plant-type magical beast that came from Hell, it was completely unable to contend against the powerful aura before it at this moment. Lin Yilei's expression became extremely ugly. He could only continuously fuse his power with the Hell tree. Every leaf on the Hell tree lit up and emitted an intense green light. He knew that the next collision would not be easy. It was very likely to be the key to deciding the outcome of the battle between him and Ji-dong. The Hell tree's huge body kept swaying. Layers of black aura were continuously released from it and fused with the green leaves. With a soft hum, all the leaves were swept up and gathered in the air. They stacked on top of each other and condensed into the shape of a jade sword. The black light that was released from the Hell tree's body fused with the jade sword just like that. It was like the black light that was released from the sword. What was strange was that the sword was continuously shrinking, and Lin Yilei's expression became more and more solemn. This seemingly unremarkable sword not only gathered all of his and the Hell demonic tree's mana, but it was also forcefully compressed using the 1,000 leaves palm method. Under such circumstances, he had absolute confidence in facing any opponent. He wanted to finish off Ji-dong in one fell swoop and completely annihilate him. In the sky, Ji-dong's figure finally appeared again. When he appeared again, the sacred evolution fire dragon and the eclipse phoenix were already hovering in midair, forming a perfect Tai Chi diagram. It was just like the background behind Ji-dong. The intense black and white light was completely injected into Ji-dong's body. All the enhancements were raised to the peak, and Ji-dong's body was no longer black and white. Instead, it was blood red. It was a gorgeous red that had never been seen before. His hands were clasped above his head, and a blood-red sword that was about a meter long appeared in his grasp. There were no mana fluctuations being released from his body, only boundless killing intent and intense resentment. This was the Fire God's sword. Furthermore, it was the Fire God's sword that had suppressed the god of massacre, Shupness. It was a true divine artifact, a divine artifact that belonged to the possessor of ultimate dual flames. Lin Yilei had been full of confidence, but the moment he saw the Fire God's sword, his expression changed. His confidence was shaken at the same time. For the first time, he felt that the outcome of this battle might be his defeat. Divine artifact. Standing at the edge of the battlefield, His Holiness Lin Qing, who had been calmly watching the battle, finally spoke for the first time since he arrived. He said these two words in an affirmative tone. Divine artifact, of course it was a divine artifact, a true first-level divine artifact. Red and green, these two extremely contrasting colors, collided in the air. Ji-dong's figure collided with the dark green sword that was emitting a black light. In the next moment, the entire world seemed to darken. Strangely, not a single bit of mana spilled out from the center of the collision. Only a true powerhouse would understand what this meant. This meant that neither side was willing to waste the slightest bit of mana in the battle. Instead, they used all their mana in the battle. Only in this way could they give their full strength to their opponent. The darkness of the world disappeared in the next moment. Everything happened very quickly, but it also disappeared just as quickly. It was as if the heavens had played a joke on the human world, and a dark cloud had suddenly floated over. Ji Dong's body froze in the sky, as if he was embedded there. His body still maintained the posture of the previous attack, with both hands chopping downward. However, the fire god's sword in his hand had already disappeared. His entire body was filled with a layer of dark green light that fluctuated continuously. Not only him, but even the sacred evolution fire dragon and eclipse phoenix Huaer, who were not far behind him, also stopped moving. Their bodies were also enveloped by the dark green light. No one knew how Ji Dong's situation was, but his opponent, Lin Yilei, was in a much more miserable state. Half of the hell tree had disappeared, completely turning into ashes. 2/3 of its many branches and vines had disappeared. The pitch-black tree trunk was filled with broken cross-sections. Every part of it had burn marks, and it was even emitting a faint red light. Lin Yilei's body was crouching at the top of the hell tree. His right arm had been temporarily crippled by Ji Dong, but this time, his left arm had completely disappeared. There was even a faint red light mark on his chest. "Yilei," Lin Qing called out in a low voice. In the next moment, her body had already appeared on the hell tree, and she hugged her husband. On the other side, Chen Sichuan did not want to be left behind. She also soared into the air and hugged Ji Dong's body. They flew backwards and landed far away. Chen Sichuan could clearly feel that Ji Dong was currently fighting against the dual attributes of darkness and wood in his body. His face was also as pale as paper. Among everyone present, only Chen Sichuan and Lin Qing could completely understand the collision just now. When they realized it, it was already too late to stop it. This was because it was a collision between a top-notch sure-kill technique and a high-level sure-kill technique. Without any preparation, even a Saint-tier expert could not easily intervene. Yes, Ji Dong had borrowed the power of the sacred evolution fire dragon and the eclipse phoenix. That fire god's sword had completely erupted with the power of a top-notch sure-kill technique. It was even more powerful than the complete version of the Ice of Flames. For the first time, the power of a divine weapon was revealed in his hands. In this battle, Ji Dong had won. The greenish-black light surrounding Ji Dong, the sacred evolution fire dragon, and the eclipse phoenix gradually faded. With a wah sound, Ji Dong spat out a large mouthful of blood. The blood was actually greenish-black in color. When it landed on the ground, it corroded a large hole in the ground. As for the sacred evolution fire dragon and eclipse phoenix, they looked a lot more haggard. Regardless, they looked much better than the demonic hell tree. At the very least, they were intact. Wah! Ji Dong spat out another mouthful of blood. Just like that, he spat out 4 or 5 mouthfuls of blood before the blood he spat out turned red again. With Chen Sichuan's help, he slowly steadied himself. His face was pale, just like his white hair. Although the outcome of this battle had been decided, both sides were injured. The Hell Tree was indeed a top-notch rank 10 magical beast. Ji Dong could clearly feel that it was not inferior to the Heavenly Stem Divine Beast, not to mention the addition of a level 96 Supreme Expert. If not for his ultimate dual flames complementing each other, Maotai, Wuliangye, and Huer, as well as the amplification of the divine weapon Fire God Sword, he would not have been able to defeat Lin Yilei no matter what. Ji Dong was seriously injured, but Lin Yilei's injury was even more serious. At this moment, his body was completely limp in his wife's arms. Blood was constantly flowing out from the corner of his mouth. The blood directly evaporated in the air, as if it was ignited. From the red wound on his chest and abdomen, blood was constantly spurting out. His breath of life was rapidly fading. Ji Dong was seriously injured, but Lin Yilei was suffering from a fatal injury. "Yilei, you have to pull yourself together." Her Highness Lin Qing's face finally could not keep calm anymore. The crystal-clear Ewood magic continuously flowed into her husband's body. She could clearly feel that her husband's internal organs were burning fiercely. Many parts of his body were suffering from severe damage. At this moment, Lin Yilei could only breathe in, but not out. Lin Qing's left hand was in the air. In front of her palm, suddenly an illusory light appeared. The next moment, she reached into her hand and took out a small bottle, or a small gourd, that Ji Dong and Chen Sichuan were very familiar with. She opened the lid of the gourd and poured all the green liquid into Lin Yilei's mouth, without hesitation. Then, she carried his body and flew up, landing in front of Lin Baichuan and his wife. "Take care of your grandfather," Lin Qing said lightly. She handed Lin Yilei's body to Lin Baichuan. After Lin Baichuan caught his grandpa's body, he finally understood how bad his grandpa's condition was. He was just hanging on to his last breath. Fortunately, Lin Qing had given him a whole bottle of the source of life, so he could barely hang on to his life and protect his internal organs from being attacked. Unfortunately, the life spring that Lin Qing had was the most ordinary kind. It could not be compared with Ji Dong's 1,000-year life spring. She also knew that in order to save her husband's life, she had to find more than a 1,000-year life spring. However, this was not the time to do this. With that bottle of life spring, plus her husband's wood magic and her own wood magic, he could at least live for a year. 1 year was enough for her to find the life spring. What she needed to do now was to avenge her husband. Turning around, Lin Qing coldly looked at Hyoheim's side. In the middle of the arena, the half-destroyed hell tree was still there. It was not clear whether it was dead or not. Ji Dong barely managed to stand up with Chen Sichuan's support. His body was also in extreme pain, but in this situation where both sides were injured, the benefits of having a strong body's resistance could be seen. With the combination of the winged serpent transformation and the vermilion bird transformation, his body was far sturdier than an ordinary person's. Even though he was still seriously injured, his body's self-coordination and healing ability were enough to allow him to stand up straight. At the same time, his body was also trying its best to expel the remaining hostile magic, especially the corrosive dark magic. With every passing second, his body would recover a little. For Ji Dong, the biggest problem now was that he had consumed too much magic. Not only him, but the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon and Eclipse Phoenix had also consumed a lot of magic. Using the ultimate skill, which could only be used by a saint, he could imagine the price he had to pay. The magic in his body was less than 20%, and the magic of the two beasts was only about 30%. Chapter 474. It was not easy for Ji Dong to defeat Lin Yilei, who was even more powerful than Yin Chao and Yang Ming. He had paid such a small price to do so. Looking at Lin Qing walking towards him step by step, Ji Dong's heart gradually turned cold. He could not judge Lin Qing's strength at all. However, when he was fighting with Lin Yilei, he could clearly feel that Lin Qing, who was standing at the edge of the arena, was a huge threat to him. When the two of them collided, he could have killed Lin Yilei in one blow with his ultimate skill. However, at that moment, Lin Qing's body emitted a frightening power. His attack was a little dazed, which was why he could not kill Lin Yilei. It was very likely that Tai Chong's cultivation was not inferior to Gong Chao's. At this moment, Ji Dong was like an arrow at the end of its flight. He could only hope that Lin Qing would not be like Lin Yilei, who also had a magical beast companion and a devilish domain. The magical power in Ji Dong's body circulated rapidly. The core of life hanging on his chest was releasing a huge breath of life to help him heal his damaged meridians. The blood that he spat out was not only to unclog his meridians, but also to expel the magical power that Lin Yilei had injected into his body. Only then did he feel much better. With the help of the core of life, Ji Dong calculated that he would need at most 6 hours to heal his injuries, and another 2 hours to recover his magical power. In other words, he would only need 8 hours to recover his magical power. However, would Tai Chong give him such a chance? Run away? It wasn't that Ji Dong hadn't thought about it, but neither the sacred evolution fire dragon nor the eclipse phoenix were in good condition. Their speed couldn't reach the level where they could escape from a supreme being expert. Supreme beings could fly to begin with. They were definitely not as fast as magical beasts over long distances, but their speed over short distances wasn't something magical beasts could compare to. Unless Ji Dong was willing to harden his heart and leave either the sacred evolution fire dragon or the eclipse phoenix behind to bring up the rear. However, how could he do that? In a short period of time, he had already made various judgments about the situation in front of him. Ji Dong realized that he had almost no chance of winning. A faint light flickered, and Ji Dong's face revealed a strong mana fluctuation. It was not easy for him to still be able to gather his mana at a time like this. He still had to face what he had to face. It could be said that he had gained a lot from the battle with Lin Yilei just now. Ji Dong knew very well that if it were not for the help of the two great magical beasts, he would not have been able to defeat Lin Yilei. What he had to do now was to get through the difficulties in front of him. Ji Dong, let me do it. Just as Ji Dong was barely gathering his magical power, the gentle voice behind him rang out. Chen Sichuan turned around and stood in front of Ji Dong. Her gaze was calm and determined, and in her left hand was the snow-white dragon egg, Thought Move. A faint golden light was released from Thought Move, and it set off Qin Sichuan's beautiful face, making her look even more noble and alluring. Sichuan, are you crazy? Lin Qinyu couldn't help but shout. He really liked Chen Sichuan. Seeing that Chen Sichuan was about to face his great-grandmother, he couldn't help but feel anxious. Shut up. Lin Baichuan slapped his son and sent him tumbling. His grandfather and grandmother had already taken action for this matter, so they had no right to say anything. Especially when his grandfather was so seriously injured, one could imagine how his grandmother felt. If they still dared to say anything at this time, wouldn't they be courting death? The hatred between the Lin family and Ji Dong had reached the point where they would not stop until one of them died. Chen Sichuan chose him, so she naturally stood on the opposite side of the Lin family. Lin Qing walked towards Ji Dong step by step. What? Do you also want to feel the feeling of challenging a supreme master? Lin Qing said calmly. Chen Sichuan looked at Lin Qing calmly and said, I'm sorry, Your Highness Tai Chong. What happened today was because of me. I wanted to break off the engagement, but I didn't think that it would cause such a huge commotion. It even caused the two highnesses to take action. The Lin family, what a good Lin family. It seems like Your Highness Tai Chong wants to continue this war of attrition. I just want to tell you that Ji Dong is not alone. Even in the imperial palace of the Eastern Wood Empire, he still has me by his side. I know that you want to kill him now, but before that, you have to kill me first. Sichuan, shut up. Hurry up and come back. Chen Xiaofeng shouted angrily. He was now extremely regretful in his heart. Seeing Ji Dong defeat Lin Yilei in the end, he was extremely depressed about the way he handled this matter. If he knew that this young man was so powerful, he wouldn't have treated him like that. However, looking at the current situation, the Lin family still had His Highness Tai Chong, who was still in perfect condition, and Ji Dong was already heavily injured. In this kind of situation, he, as the emperor, didn't know how to deal with it. A battle between supreme being experts was not something that the government could control, even if he was the emperor. Chen Sichuan didn't look at her father, because she could clearly feel that Lin Qing was giving her a lot of pressure. Her eyes were calm and steady, not the slightest bit shaken. Ever since she came to this world, she hadn't had a real fight. It seemed like today was the time to make an exception. Just like what she had said, as long as she was alive, she wouldn't allow anyone to hurt Ji Dong. In the end, she didn't respond to her father's words. A green light swept up from under her feet, like a leaf turning over. In the blink of an eye, it had covered her entire body. It was the eternal armor. Wave-like green light rippled on the eternal armor. Now, not only had the eternal armor fully recovered its strength, but it could also unleash even more power due to the support of the core of life and the increase in Chen Xishuan's cultivation. Ji Dong, who was standing behind Chen Xishuan, didn't say anything. He just quickly took a few steps back and sat down at the edge of the battlefield. The sacred evolution fire dragon and eclipse phoenix also landed beside him, protecting him in the center. Ji Dong sat cross-legged, and the mana in his body was already circulating at high speed. He was doing his best to heal his injuries and recover his mana. If he wanted to help Chen Xishuan survive this disaster, he had to recover his strength as soon as possible. The sacred evolution fire dragon raised one of its dragon claws. Rays of light continuously shone from its claws. They were magical beast crystal cores, all of them of the fire attribute. As it ate, it threw a few to the eclipse phoenix. These were the spoils of war that Moutai and 5-grain liquor had obtained in the Dragon Valley. They hadn't fought for nothing. Every dragon had an extremely rich collection. Although it wasn't a robbery, it was still possible to win some prizes. This was also one of the reasons why the higher-ranked dragons were so depressed. With the help of these crystal cores, their recovery speed was even faster than Ji Dong's. Lin Qing could clearly see what Ji Dong was doing. His expression could only be described as frosty, but even so, she couldn't help but admit Ji Dong's outstanding combat ability. It could be said that apart from Chen Xishuan, he was the only one who had no help. He did this because he didn't want to waste any time and wanted to restore his magical power as soon as possible. At the same time, he did this to show his absolute trust and confidence in Chen Xishuan. The armor of eternity, the artifact that protects the goddess of life. Your Highness, do you think that with this artifact you can stop me? Lin Qing said lightly. Chen Xishuan smiled and said, whether or not I can stop you is not up to you, Senior. I'm afraid that even His Highness did not think that he would be defeated by Ji Dong. When Ji Dong was injured, Chen Xishuan's pain was no less than Lin Qing's pain for Linilei. She didn't show any mercy to Ji Dong. She originally felt sorry for breaking off the engagement, but now that Ji Dong was injured, Chen Xishuan despised the shameless Lin family. Emu against emu. Both of them had the same attributes, so there was no need to talk about mutual benefit. It all depended on the equipment, the magic beasts, and their own mana. Lin Qing looked at Chen Xishuan coldly. She didn't seem to be in a hurry to make a move. She also didn't care whether Ji Dong's mana could recover or not. Looking at her eyes, Chen Xishuan's heart gradually sank. Because she found that in the eyes of Lin Qing, there was a familiar feeling. That was the feeling of being in control of everything. This kind of look was often revealed when she was still in the flaming bar. No matter what, you and my great-grandson used to have an engagement, and you are also the princess of the Eastern Wood Kingdom. I don't want to kill you. If you leave now, I won't take revenge on you. This is your last chance. Lin Qing stood there, but her cold voice was clearly transmitted to everyone's ears. There is no need. Chen Xishuan didn't even think and immediately replied, Your Majesty, if someone wanted to kill Ji Dong when he was injured, and asked you to leave, would you leave? Ji Dong is my lover. I have already said, if you want to kill him, you have to go through me first. Lin Qing smiled. The smile on her old face was not beautiful at all. It was cold to the extreme. The temperature of the surrounding air seemed to drop with her smile. She looked at Chen Xishuan softly and softly said, All right, I will fulfill your wish. As soon as she finished her words, Lin Qing moved. The people who were watching the battle only saw a dark green light flickering slightly. Lin Qing had already appeared in front of Chen Xishuan. Without any fancy moves, her right hand directly hit Chen Xishuan's head. At this time, Chen Xishuan's left hand was still holding Si Dong. Only her right hand could be used to resist. Lin Qing's movement was direct, simple, and fast. Moreover, after her palm hit, without the help of the magical beast and the devil's domain, Her right hand actually turned dark green. That was obviously the effect of the thousand leaves palm. She didn't need to use her magic outside her body to directly release the thousand leaves palm. At this moment, Chen Sichuan confirmed her own judgment, because when Lin Qing made her move, she also saw the yin-yang crown on top of her head. On top of the black yin-yang crown, the 9 crowns were shining brightly. 4 dazzling stars appeared on top of the crown. At this time, the light of these 4 stars seemed to have overshadowed the 9 crowns. 4 stars represented level 8, level 98. Oh my god, she had actually reached level 98. It wasn't only Chen Sichuan who was shocked. Everyone who was watching the battle, including the Lin family, were also shocked. Even Lin Baichuan and his wife didn't know how powerful their grandmother was. In their memory, they had only seen their grandfather Lin Yilei fight. As for their grandmother, they only knew that she was also a great master, but they had never seen her fight. At this time, when Lin Qing released her yin-yang crown, everyone knew that her cultivation had actually reached such a terrifying level. Compared to Lin Yilei, she was even 2 levels higher. Level 98 and 96 seemed to be only 2 levels apart. However, the gap between these 2 levels was an insurmountable gap. After breaking through to the Great Master level, it was extremely difficult to raise any level. At the same time, this level 98 also meant that Lin Qing was only 1 step away from entering the ranks of the Saint level. Level 99 was the Saint level and level 100 was the God level. It could be seen how difficult it was to raise the last level. No wonder Lin Yilei had the confidence to say that they could face the 4 Supreme Masters. With Lin Qing's cultivation, they could really do it. Who would have thought that among the 5 great empires, the 2 Supreme Masters of the Eastern Wood Empire were the weakest and the most low-key ones? Chen Xiaofeng felt that his heart couldn't bear this kind of stimulation. The ups and downs of life couldn't be more like this. Jidong's formidable strength, Lin Yilei's attack at level 96, Jidong defeating Lin Yilei, and then Lin Qing's attack at level 98. All of these things were like throwing his heart into the air and then fiercely smashing it to the ground. Level 98, it was actually level 98. If he had known that there was a great master of the Eastern Wood Empire who was level 98, the status of the Eastern Wood Empire in the continent wouldn't be like this. Chen Xiaofeng closed his eyes in pain. He didn't want to see the result of this battle. No matter what, after this battle, there wouldn't be any benefits for the Eastern Wood Empire. Of course, in his heart, he had already sentenced Ji Dong to death. As for his daughter, he was powerless to save her. He was afraid of seeing his daughter die in front of him. If the Lin family killed his daughter, even if they were still in the Eastern Wood Empire, how could they support the Eastern Wood Empire and himself? On the contrary, Prince Tianlu, who was standing beside Chen Xiaofeng, had a cold smile on his face. After losing the support of 2 great masters, his brother's position as the emperor would be unstable. Chapter 475. What he needed to do was to get the support of the 2 masters as much as possible. He clearly saw what Lin Qing had given Lin Yilei to drink. He still had a lot of this ordinary version of the source of life, which was snatched from the forest monsters. Wasn't it perfect to use it to please Lin Yilei and his wife? Everyone had their own thoughts. At this time, the battle on the battlefield had already begun. When everyone saw that Lin Qing had reached level 98, the queen even screamed and fainted. No one was optimistic about Chen Sichuan. As for Jidong, they could still hope for a miracle. Although Chen Sichuan was a genius, the Dongmu Saintess, they were all very clear about her cultivation. How could she have any chance when there was a 30-level gap between her and Jidong? At this moment, they saw Chen Sichuan's yin crown. Her cultivation base of level 78 was impressively displayed on the Imu yin crown. When Chen Sichuan left the imperial palace, she had only just passed level 60. In just a short 2 years, she had actually cultivated to level 78. However, even so, there was still a gap of 20 levels between her and His Highness Tai Chong. Could it be that a second miracle was going to happen? Facing Tai Chong Lin Qing's extremely direct palm strike, Chen Xishuan moved. The first thing she did was to retreat. Her footsteps were light, and her whole body was like a puff of smoke. Lin Qing's eyes slightly moved, because she was surprised to find that Chen Xishuan, who had been locked on by her, had already escaped from her range. Lin Qing's palm hit the air. However, her ability to control her magic was obviously not comparable to Lin Yilei's. Her palm was still crystal clear and dark green. Her toes lightly touched the ground, and she had already caught up with Chen Xishuan. When her right hand hit again, it was different from before. It was still that sparkling and translucent dark green, but this time, it was no longer contained in the palm. The dark green light emitted from the palm rapidly changed and expanded in the air, turning into a huge mana palm with a diameter of 10 meters. What was even more frightening was that the strength of the mana emitted by this huge mana palm actually increased along with its size. 1,000 Leaves Palm. Chen Xishuan exclaimed in a low voice. Her gaze became even more cautious. Her feet were still lightly treading as she quickly retreated. However, no matter how fast her movements were, they couldn't compare to the speed of mana flying through the air. Furthermore, there was still the powerful pressure from the sovereign of rank 98, which limited her speed. A low muffled sound exploded in the air. The speed of the 1,000 Leaves Palm suddenly increased, and instantly arrived in front of Chen Xishuan's body. And at this moment, Chen Xishuan made a strange response. Her body floated in the air, and her whole body was parallel to the ground. Her hands were like butterflies, changing all kinds of gestures above her head. Dots of dark green light condensed above her head, and at the same time, her body also started to rotate rapidly. It looked like a spinning top drilling into the 1,000 Leaves Palm. An ear-piercing sound of friction rang out in the next moment. Chen Xishuan's dancing hands had already collided with the 1,000 Leaf Palm. Strangely, the 1,000 Leaf Palm was actually blocked just like that. Moreover, Chen Xishuan's hands seemed to have an extremely powerful penetrative ability. The center of the 1,000 Leaf Palm looked like it was going to be drilled through. Frowning, Lin Qing's eyes flashed coldly. The 1,000 Leaves Palm suddenly closed, and grabbed towards Chen Xishuan's body. If she was caught, the result would be obvious. However, at this time, Chen Xishuan's body emitted a strange magic wave. A faint white light appeared on the surface of the armor of eternity. At the same time, a strange array also appeared behind her. It was the assimilation array that Ji Dong was proficient in. However, Chen Xishuan used the Wood assimilation array. A strange scene appeared. When the 1,000 Leaf Palm came into contact with Chen Xishuan's white light, it seemed to be quickly digested by Chen Xishuan's rapidly spinning body. In the next moment, with a soft pu sound, Chen Xishuan's body had already broken through the 1,000 Leaf Palm. She drilled out of the palm and headed straight for Lin Qing. How is this possible? This thought flashed through everyone's mind. Yes, no one thought that this was possible. Who would have thought that Chen Xishuan could break through the 1,000 Leaves Palm so easily in front of a level 98 Supreme? The one who was the most shocked was Lin Qing herself. She could clearly feel that Chen Xishuan's magic was level 78, which was not as strong as Ji Dong's. Moreover, she only had one element, which made the difference between their cultivation levels unimaginable. However, under such circumstances, facing the 1,000 Leaves Palm that even her husband was at a disadvantage, Chen Xishuan actually managed to break through the 1,000 Leaves Palm. Lin Qing really couldn't understand how she did it. Of course, Lin Qing didn't know that the current Chen Xishuan was no longer the Chen Xishuan of the past. The thousands of years of experience in the Flaming Bar might not be considered as battle experience, but it could definitely be considered as the experience of controlling magic. After living in the underground world for so long, what did she do when she had nothing to do? She could only practice and feel the changes of magic element. Although she was a fire magician at that time and now she was a wood magician. However, the 5 elements of magic were different, so naturally there were similarities. It had been 2 years since Chen Sichuan had entered this body. After familiarizing herself with the wood element magic, Chen Sichuan's current combat ability and control of magic were even incomparable to Ji Dong. She was not a simple wood magician. The white light was undoubtedly the power of chaos. When she absorbed the E-wood crystal crown of the heavenly stem saint, she had already understood it based on her own experience. Over the past 2 years, apart from pursuing Ji Dong, she had been training hard so that she could help Ji Dong when necessary. Ever since Ji Dong met her, she had never really fought. Hence, even Ji Dong did not know that among the heavenly stem saints, Chen Sichuan was the only one who could fight against him and Fury. Jin was still in the process of awakening her dragon bloodline. Perhaps she would only be able to enter the most powerful circle of the heavenly stem saints after her dragon bloodline was awakened. Of course, even then, her understanding of the magical elements was still not as good as Flaming Bar's. After all, Flaming Bar was once a god, and had experienced the entire process of evolving from the simplest element to a god. This experience was too valuable. The reason why Chen Sichuan was able to break through the 1,000-leaf handprint was because she had not done anything difficult. With her understanding of mana, she had found the weakest point of the 1,000-leaf handprint immediately. Then, she used the assimilation matrix and the wood of chaos, as well as the characteristics of both elements to assimilate herself into the 1,000-leaf handprint. To ordinary mages, this was no different from suicide. Although they had the same element, they would immediately be blasted into smithereens if the mana undulations were slightly different. However, Chen Sichuan, or rather, Flaming Bar, did not have to worry about this at all. Her soul was currently fusing with Ji Dong's soul. Although Ji Dong could not help her in actual combat, he could help her raise her soul power to the level of a sage, surpassing her opponent. Chen Sichuan could naturally grasp the mana undulations in the 1,000-leaf handprint easily. Coupled with her own understanding of the elements, she was able to assimilate into the 1,000-leaf handprint just like that. Throughout the entire process, she did not have to fight the 1,000-leaf handprint head-on at all. She even used the assimilation matrix to absorb a portion of the 1,000-leaf handprint's mana, raising her mana to its peak. After Chen Sichuan passed through the 1,000-leaf handprint, her body stopped in the air. A pair of green wings spread out from her back, giving her the ability to fly. Without a doubt, this came from the armor of eternity. Borrowing the power of the armor, Chen Sichuan's body floated in the air for dozens of palms. Waves of dark green light floated in front of her, especially the dark green color, mixed with white. These mana floated in the air and swept up, then quickly gathered together to form a shape. It happened to be a green flower. E-wood totem, 6 directions. The 6 directions divine beasts was considered a rather peculiar one. Just like the hell tree, it was a plant-type magical beast. At this moment, Chen Sichuan was able to perfectly imitate the 6 directions divine beasts by relying on her magical control and the aura of the Tree of Chaos. As soon as the 6 directions divine beasts appeared, all the wood elements in the air immediately converged towards it. Even the mana in the broken 1,000-leaf handprint and the ultimate E-wood mana on Lin Qing's body were no exception. This time, Lin Qing was really shocked because what Chen Sichuan did was something she couldn't do. What Chen Sichuan did wasn't just summoning the 6 directions, but creating the 6 directions totem. Lin Qing also understood the Wood of Chaos. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to reach level 98. However, she didn't have the ability to create the 6 directions totem. Moreover, the summoning ability of the wood element was even stronger than the 6 directions of the heavenly stem's mythological beast. How did she do it? Of course, Lin Qing couldn't understand that the 6 directions that Chen Sichuan summoned couldn't be considered as the 6 directions. The flaming bar's original form was a red lotus from the Earth's core. From a certain point of view, it could also be considered as a plant. Of course, it couldn't be categorized as a magical beast. At this moment, the ability that she was using was based on the composition of the red lotus. She used the wood of chaos and the ultimate wood mana to condense a flower of chaos. On the surface, it seemed to be the 6 directions. However, in reality, this method of condensing was something that even a Saint-tier powerhouse might not be able to do. The technique involved belonged to the god tier. This was the experience that she had gained from being a god. Ji Dong, who was cultivating, seemed to have felt something. However, he didn't open his eyes and continued his cultivation. Lin Qing was surprised for a moment, but she immediately reacted and said, "Do you want to destroy this place? This isn't a power that you can control." Qin Sichuan smiled indifferently and said, "It's not that I want to destroy this place. It's His Majesty Tai Chong who wants to destroy us. However, I'm afraid that there are many things here that you're unwilling to destroy. I wonder if my 6 directions can satisfy you?" That's right, after this strange 6 directions was created, it was no longer under Qin Sichuan's control. Although she had the experience of being a god in her previous life, she didn't have the strength of a god. After creating this 6 directions, it began to absorb the wood elements in the air endlessly. While they were talking, it had become so strong that Qin Sichuan couldn't control it. Even His Majesty Tai Chong, Lin Qing, couldn't use her own power to destroy this 6 directions because she also had the wood element. If it was another Supreme Master, even the weakest Supreme Master, he would be able to destroy the 6 directions flower as soon as it appeared. However, Lin Qing couldn't do it, because she also had the wood attribute. As long as she used her wood magic, it would immediately become the nourishment of the 6 directions flower. It would only help it grow, but it wouldn't be able to stop it. Once the 6 directions flower grew to a certain extent, it could even destroy the entire Eastern Wood City, or even a wider area. When the magic became unstable, it would become the most terrifying force. It could be said that the 6 directions flower had the potential to become the ultimate killer move. Of course, although there were many plants in the palace, it wasn't possible to absorb the magic of the ultimate killing technique in a short period of time. "Please, Tai Chong, Your Majesty, I will name this useless skill as 6 directions creation. Of course, for you, it is not as simple as that. Among everyone here, only you have the power to dissolve it." Qin Sichuan smiled and made a gesture to invite Lin Qing to start. Lin Qing gritted her teeth and looked at Qin Sichuan strangely. Her figure flashed and appeared under the 6 directions creation. She raised her hands and a faint white light was released from her palms. It was the wood of chaos. Moreover, the magic of the wood of chaos that she released was quickly absorbed by the 6 directions creation. Without any hesitation, Lin Qing carried the 6 directions creation and flew straight to the sky. There was only one way to stop this 6 directions creation from absorbing magic. That was to make it leave the place where the wood element was present. Wood and earth elements weren't present in the air. For example, these 2 elements were extremely rare in the sky. Chapter 476. In order to prevent the creation's 6 directions from releasing its destructive power, Lin Qing had no choice but to send it to the sky. Only in this way could she protect Eastern Wood City and her family. In a blink of an eye, Lin Qing had already dragged the creation's 6 directions and disappeared in the sky. She had to send it to the sky at least 3,000 meters high. Even if she had a level 98 magical power, it was not an easy task under the situation where the creation's 6 directions was constantly absorbing her own magical power. Qin Sichuan smiled as she watched Lin Qing soar into the sky. The next moment, her body softly fell to the ground, barely supporting herself from lying down. She gasped for breath, and the magical fluctuations on her body were extremely unstable. Her realm was sufficient, but her cultivation base was far too lacking. It could be said that condensing the 6 directions creation flower had consumed almost all of her power. Her mana consumption was even greater than that of Ji Dong, who had been heavily injured. However, for her it was all worth it. After all, she was not like Ji Dong, who had the ultimate dual attributes and had broken through 8 crowns. She also had 2 powerful magical beasts to help her. Facing Lin Qing, who was more powerful than Lin Yilei, she could only do this. She had to delay as much time as possible and consume as much of Lin Qing's magical power as possible to create an opportunity for Ji Dong. At this moment, Chen Sichuan's heart constantly produced a feeling of powerlessness. She really missed the powerful strength she had when she was still in the flaming bar. God rank, she did not know when or if she would have the chance to recover. The strong feeling of weakness made Chen Sichuan's whole body sore. She continuously took a few deep breaths to adjust the magical fluctuations in her body. Only then did she feel a little better. However, all the wood element magical power in the air had been completely absorbed by the creation's 6 directions. If she wanted to recover her magical power, it would not be done in a short time. She took out a crystal from the storage magic tool and absorbed the magical power in it. She slowly walked to the side of Ji Dong. At this time, the figure of Tai Chong Lin Qing had completely disappeared in the sky. Naturally, Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon and Eclipse Phoenix would not stop Chen Sichuan. Eclipse Phoenix tilted its head and looked at her. Although it did not recognize Chen Sichuan's appearance, the familiar and intimate feeling would not disappear. Magical beasts were far more sensitive than humans in this aspect, especially since fire had received the benefits of the flaming bar's life Red Lotus. Chen Sichuan walked to the back of Ji Dong and stood still. The eternal armor on her body was slowly removed. She stood behind Ji Dong and closed her eyes, silently absorbing the wood element magical power in the crystal in her hand. For ordinary magic masters, absorbing magical beasts' crystal cores to recover their magical power was very effective. However, Ji Dong and the others were not ordinary magic masters. Unless it was a 10th grade magical beast's crystal core that could directly absorb ultimate magical power, using ordinary crystal cores to recover their ultimate magical power was like trying to put out a burning cart of firewood with a cup of water. The amount of ordinary magical power that was absorbed and compressed into ultimate magical power was pitifully small. Even 8th and 9th grade crystal cores were the same. They were of limited use to them. At this moment, an incomparably strong magical wave suddenly exploded in the sky. Everyone could feel that the magical wave had exploded far away, but they could also feel the power of the explosion. Chen Sichuan, who was standing behind Ji Dong, revealed a faint smile. She lowered her head to look at Ji Dong and thought to herself, "Ji Dong, I've done everything I can. If we can't escape today, we'll just stay here together." As if sensing Chen Sichuan's thoughts, Ji Dong, who had been in a state of cultivation, slowly opened his eyes and stood up from the ground. "Ji Dong, let's work together." Chen Sichuan's soft voice came from behind Ji Dong. Ji Dong nodded his head and slowly withdrew the Godfire Saint King armor into his body. At the same time, he opened his arms to his sides. Chen Sichuan quietly took a step forward and pressed her delicate body against Ji Dong's back without reservation. The moment she pressed against him, Ji Dong's body couldn't help but tremble a bit despite the fact that he was facing a life and death crisis. Chen Sichuan's delicate body was warm and comfortable, like a piece of springy jade pressing against him. She hugged him very tightly, as if she wanted to touch her body into Ji Dong's. Her face was pressed against the back of Ji Dong's cheek, and her arms were wrapped around Ji Dong's waist. Chen Sichuan's slender figure was only slightly smaller than Ji Dong's. At this moment, she was pressed against his back and could be completely covered by his body. The armor of eternity swept up once again and completely enveloped the two of them. It seemed that the divine weapon that had enveloped the two of them was a bit bloated. However, it wasn't over yet. When the eternal blunt finished wrapping around them, a layer of dark red light surged out from within and flowed out from the gaps of the armor of eternity. It was Ji-dong's Godfire Saint King armor. The wings on Ji-dong's back also unfurled from Qin Sixuan's shoulders and fused with the armor of eternity. The effect of the divine art fusion was fully utilized by Ji-dong. This originally useless skill for a mage was so magical when used by Ji-dong. Qin Sixuan didn't have any mana left to support it, but the power of her soul was still strong. When Ji-dong's soul perfectly fused with hers, their souls sublimated. This was also why Ji-dong could use the armor of eternity at the same time. Using the divine art fusion to temporarily use the two sets of armor at the same time not only increased their defense to a whole new level, but at the same time, the power of the divine weapon in the calcium of eternity fused with Ji-dong's mana, greatly increasing his fire mana recovery speed. Ji-dong raised his hands in front of his chest. Until now, he didn't think of escaping. Being chased by a level 98 mage, escaping was useless. It was better to fight with all his might. Ji-dong's palms were facing each other. A milky white radiance slowly surged out from his chest and condensed into a milky white bead. His body was completely attached to Qin Sixuan's, allowing his soul to fuse with her to the most perfect degree. This also allowed him to sense the magic elements in the air to the extreme. Through the effect of the chaos bead formed by the chaos flames, the fire elements in the air immediately converged towards him like rivers flowing into the sea. Right now, he could no longer care about healing his injuries. He could only temporarily suppress his injuries and get through this crisis before him. What Qin Sixuan did was not only to temporarily draw away His Majesty Tai Chong Lin Qing, giving him more time to recover his mana. At the same time, the Six Directions Creation Flower also absorbed a large amount of Lin Qing's level 98 mana. At the same time, there was no wood mana in the air to support Lin Qing, which could be said to have greatly weakened the opponent. Under such circumstances, it was not entirely impossible for him and Qin Sixuan to work together. Just as Ji-dong was absorbing the fire elements in the air, an angry roar resounded in the sky. A dark green light flashed and landed on the top of the Hell Punisher tree in the middle of the training field. Lin Qing's face was very ugly. Her clothes were torn in many places. Even her silver hair was not as neat as before. Compared to before, her aura was not as distant as before. Qin Sixuan's Six Creations Creation Flower brought her more trouble than she had imagined. When the flower exploded, there was no sign at all. Lin Qing was caught unprepared. If it weren't for her cultivation being too high, it would have been fatal. Qin Sixuan didn't have enough magical power to use the Six Creations Creation Flower, but her ingenious imprint and thousands of years of experience made Tai Chong suffer a big loss. Good, very good. Lin Qing was so angry that she started to laugh. Sure enough, girls are attracted to their children. If I give you another 20 years, this world will belong to you youngsters. She is indeed a heavenly STEM saint. As recorded in history, every generation of heavenly STEM saint is a dragon among men. She was able to injure me even though there was a huge gap between our cultivation levels. She even used up 70% of my magic power. Even the most powerful masters in the world might not be able to do that. But, do you think that the remaining 30% of my magic power is not enough to keep you here? A strange color appeared beside Lin Qing. It was a faint white. Seeing this white, Ji-dong's eyes suddenly froze. Relying on his soul power that surpassed Lin Qing's, he could feel that the white itself wasn't the chaotic force. It was another strange power that he had never seen before. Could it be the demon's domain? It wasn't hard to imagine how powerful a level 98 Supreme's devil's domain would be. However, the next moment, Ji-dong knew that he was wrong. It wasn't the devil's domain. The faint white light wasn't used to attack, nor was it used to defend. Instead, it slowly melted into the hell demonic tree underneath Lin Qing's body. The faint white light disappeared into the hell demonic tree in a blink of an eye. A strange scene appeared. The previously half-dead hell demonic tree, after receiving the white light, seemed to be injected with a stimulant. It violently trembled, and its damaged body quickly recovered. In a blink of an eye, the hell demonic tree had returned to its previous peak state. There was a branch in Lin Qing's hand. It was green all over, about 4 feet long. There were 9 white flowers on it. It wasn't the Yi-wood totem's flower of 6 directions. Ji Dong looked at it carefully and suddenly remembered the name of a flower. He couldn't help but blurt out, "Poppy, is this the poppy flower?" This time, it was Lin Qing's turn to be surprised. "You actually recognize my poppy flower." Ji Dong's face, which was hidden under the mask, became ugly. He could clearly feel that these 9 poppy flowers were full of strange colors. In other words, these 9 flowers were alive. Just like the hell demonic tree, they were also magic beasts. Moreover, they were extremely powerful magic beasts. Such a simple branch was Lin Qing's magic beast companion. At the same time, it could also be her weapon. "This is my magic beast companion, the absolute love poppy. Don't you want to know its function? It looks so delicate, how can it be a magic beast? It can't defend, it can't help me attack, and it can't even fly me. However, I can tell you that even the most powerful magical beast in the world would tremble in fear upon seeing it. Don't ever come into contact with my poppy. Any living creature that is tainted by its light will become its slave, which is also my slave." Looking at the 9 poppies on the branches, Lin Qing's eyes revealed an infatuated light. The light of the absolute love poppies didn't spread far. Each flower was only about a foot in diameter. The light that was poured into the tree of hell was the light of the poppies. Absolute love poppy, this strange plant magic beast, not to mention Ji Dong, even the flaming bar hadn't heard of it before. However, Ji Dong was very clear about what opium poppy was. It was the raw material of drugs. Through Lin Qing's words, he already understood that the light of the absolute love poppy could be like a drug that could make any creature addicted to it, and then be controlled by it. Such a poisonous plant beast. His Majesty Tai Chong and His Majesty Gong Chao both had such powerful beasts. What kind of opponent did he meet this time? Lin Qing didn't seem to be in a hurry to make a move. Although there was no dense wood magic in the air, she seemed to be feeling the absolute love poppy's aura in her hand. "Oh yes, there is one more thing I forgot to tell you. Any creature that is under my absolute love poppy's control will be able to use its life as the price for a period of time to increase its strength. The hell demonic tree is like this, I am also like this. At the same time, it can also heal all wounds. If it is necessary, I can even use it to take back my husband's life. But if that is the case, Ilay can only live for another 5 years. He is my magic beast companion. I can use the price of not being able to bloom for a year to temporarily increase my strength to saint level. Although this increase will only last for a short period of 10 minutes, but in these 10 minutes, I can crush you as easily as crushing 2 ants. I will not give you any chance, and I will not let you have any luck. Whether you choose to escape or continue to fight with me, the result will not change. With the help of my absolute love poppy, everything will be meaningless." While she was talking, 2 unhealthy shades of red had quietly climbed up Lin Qing's face. The yin-yang crown on her head had also changed. The originally dark yin-yang crown and the 9 crowns lit up at the same time. The last royal star appeared on the royal ring. Together with the other 4 royal stars, they formed into a ray of light that shot up to the sky. The 9 crowns also released a ray of light, and all 10 rays of dark green light condensed on top of Lin Qing's head.